Power on. Bluetooth carries.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. This is Shelby County Board meeting for February 11th. I call this meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer, followed by the prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prayer, everyone. We gather together here today, intended on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve those with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. In His name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now, can we have roll call, please?
Earl Baker. Kenny Barr. Barbara Bennett. Mark Bennett.
Here.
Paul Canday. Brian Kaufman. Dennis Durnovich.
Here.
Jesse Durbin.
Here.
Gary Gergeny.
Here.
Rod Height.
Here.
Larry Lenz. Patrick Lyons.
Here.
Terry Metzger.
Here.
Bobby Warman.
Here.
Gary Patterson.
Here.
Derek Piercy.
Here.
John Poe.
Here.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
Jeff Slifer.
Here.
David Switz.
Here.
Don Tate.
Here.
Lynn Williams.
Here.
Okay. Everybody should have had in the board packets the minutes. If we've all had time to review, I have a motion to
I would
approve.
like a question on that. When the coroner, when he presented, did he ask for any monies for vehicles or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. Motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Barb. Second by Gary Gergeny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Now we have public body comment. Is there anybody that'd like to speak tonight? Gentlemen.
Yes, my name is George Tyler. I reside in Rural Township, Shelby County, and I wondered what the exact terminology was for the memorandum,
Moratorium.
moratorium, excuse me, moratorium. Where am I finding that? Is that public information?
As of current, it is in the minutes of the last meeting as a motion by the board to put a temporary moratorium on all wind farms. That's where it is.
What does that entail? All moratorium on wind farms? Are they able to go ahead and solicit contracts with every other landowner?
I suppose they could solicit a contract, but will they get approval from zoning? If we have a moratorium on wind farms, they would have to have that zoned out. So as of right now, they could do what they want as far as a contract goes, but will they get the approval to move forward? That's the best I can say. Does anybody else like to speak to that?
No, that's exactly how I saw it. Okay, I'm sorry. I seen it exactly the same way. They're free to solicit for a contract, and they may even be able
because we don't have a zoning administrator right now, so they would be able to get approved. And we do have it on the agenda tonight to approve an interim zoning administrator. Hopefully we'll have a full-time permanent zoning administrator soon. But it was just to address the issue right now. We don't have a zoning administrator.
Well, as a member of the Shelby County, I would encourage the board, the zoning commission, to examine these things very closely. There have been many counties in the state who have went back and revised their ordinances because they found out after they got started that they were very inadequate. Some counties have went back 4 times and did their ordinances. And with the wind farms, there's health issues and all kinds of issues that need to be dealt with to protect the citizens of the county, and particularly the citizens of those people that are in the wind farm area or close to the wind farm area. And I would also encourage you to utilize the information that these other counties have acquired, not because they wanted to do anything wrong or anything like that, it's just they didn't understand what was involved. So I think that you use all counties that haven't adopted ordinances or have old ordinances, go back and revisit this. Same with everybody starting out now trying to get a solar ordinances. And there's problems there also, particularly with water quality. Illinois Association of Drainage Districts had a meeting about a year ago. Engineers were talking about runoff from these panels, and if they're not handled, that water isn't handled in the proper method, they're going to get it all. So, as a citizen, I would just encourage the board and the committee to absolutely consider this as a very, very hard situation. I mean, you can't just go into it and let somebody write it. Everybody's got to get involved. It takes a lot to get educated on these things, but we've got to put the time in and do it right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest in your county. Number one, thank you for being very educated on what you're approaching. And rest assured that we are talking to other counties who have already been there before us to understand what they ran into before we start out ahead of the curve. But thank you very kindly.
Robert.
That's what we were working on when COVID hit, updating and get, Jared has been going around with the other counties. I know Ryan was there a few times, and we were making it a lot stricter than any other county around town. So that's what we were working on, and COVID hit, we couldn't have any, we still want to do that.
Yes, to reiterate what Mr. Simpson said was, this was in the process, the ordinance was in the process in early part of last year, then COVID hit and everything just stalled out. Therefore, that's why we made the motion last month for the moratorium, is so we can regroup and move forward. Mr. Dernovich.
Yeah, Bob is right. I was in the same meeting with him, and it was agreed upon, the meetings I've been in, that any document that we come up with will be a living document. And if it has to be amended or changed, then we will have that opportunity.
Very good.
And we were working with the Farm Bureau too. They had agreed with what Jared was working up. They took it for their legal counsel.
Very good. All right, Martha.
Yes, I just to speak to agenda item number 15 in regards to the approval for additional funding that's not budgeted for the county auditor. As a tax-paying citizen, I'm just going to ask and hope that you all are going to give us specific details as to what has created the need for the additional funding, not budgeted, so we know exactly what's going on with that. In regards to number 19 and request for approval for delinquent payment on the taxes to the poor farm, that conversation's been going on since at least February of last year, if not December 2019. I can't remember exactly when it started. My hope and wish is that whatever you all approve As has been pointed out many, many times, state statute needs to grant you the authority, whether implicitly or explicitly, to take that action. So I'm hoping if you do take action, that you will please provide to us, the taxpaying citizens, the specific statutes that grant you the authority to do what it is you're voting to approve to do.
Anybody else? Mr. Kraft?
Sorry, 1 May. John Kraft, as previous meetings, I'm going to ask that you not pay any back taxes. There was no authority to tender the tax bill to the county. The county has absolutely no responsibility to pay it. It's not for a public purpose. It's for a private purpose. And as was said before, spending money for a private purpose is not authorized. And back to what you do with public property. I'm going to read a couple quotes from the Supreme Court case, and when I printed it, I forgot to print which court case it was, but if anybody wants to know which one it is, I'll be glad to provide it. Public bodies are bound to administer property faithfully, honestly, and justly. And if it is guilty of a breach of trust by disposing of its valuable property for little or no consideration, it is regarded as acting on behalf of an individual. In this case, it would be a farmer. Using forms of legislation, such as ordinances or easements, and committing such a breach of trust does not make any difference in the act. It will not be considered an exercise of political power or public purpose, and the privilege of the exemption from judicial interference terminates where legislative action ends. And they go on to state that public property must be sold or leased, for the most the market can bring anything less that they give and not legal. So back to your that tax issue. The leaseholder is responsible for the taxes, whether they do it or not. Whether you go back to that person and get the taxes or not. The leaseholder is the one responsible, not the taxpayer. And something else that came to my attention earlier this afternoon was, some of the taxes you're paying goes to the school district. So, a person who lives in the school district pays taxes to that school district. They pay taxes to the county. The county can turn around and pay more taxes on the school district, in part on behalf of that individual. So essentially, you may be getting taxed twice to the same public body. So please think about that. Don't vote to pay those taxes. You don't know the taxes. The county does not know the taxes. Why are you going to pay it? Really don't know. Thanks.
I do have a question.
Mr. Mitchell?
Has Edgar County, the county of Edgar, are they still paying their farm taxes out of the general funds?
I don't know.
Oh,
They are recalled, and they are,
they are still paying it out of their general fund?
yes.
Okay, so they're still paying it
Now
that
we
way.
know that, we're going to make sure they stop paying.
Can you do them first?
This isn't about Edgar County, this is about Shelby County.
I know, I'm talking to him, I'm
It's
sorry.
the same with Kendall County, Morgan County, Cook County, and I'll give you another example of improper use of public funds as property. There's a school district in Lamont, 113A, that had a farm with a house and about 100 acres of farm ground given to them. Well, they let the people live in a house without paying rent. They paid their gas, they paid their electric, they paid their water, and then the farm, they also farmed the ground that they gave to the school district. The Cook County assessor took that property because nobody was paying the taxes. The school district paid $170,000+ worth of taxes, and the assessor, if I understand correctly, ended up having to pay that back to the school district, but they got the property back. And now what do they do?
But I was just asking about Edgar.
Right, I'll give another example of improper use of public property. What do they do now? They decide to pay the farmer $100 to keep the noxious weeds eradicated, and if he farms it for that purpose, he can keep all the profits. Well, that's good. That's going to be challenging for it. Not by us, by residents. Because it's just another way that that school district is just pulling the wool over the eyes of the public they think allows them to do something that they really don't have the power to do. So they're leasing out property without collecting rent. You guys are wanting to pay taxes that you're not responsible for paying.
Thank you.
But we'll get that fixed in that county.
Okay.
Kirk.
Thank you. And I'll address your question for you. There was a time we actually did get it stopped. And until this issue here came up, we weren't aware that they went back to the old way of doing business.
Have you addressed him about it?
I have not yet. No, I have not.
Okay.
But it is on our plate of many things. Rest assured that.
It's a long way from home.
What's that?
I said it's a long way from home.
What is it?
Edgar County.
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
The issue is some of the scheduling where we have to be at different times, because we do prioritize what we're doing. Right now, what some may not understand, this actually has been a project we started here in Shelby County almost 2 years ago with Shelbyville Township. And the ultimate goal is to be able to give an example to the rest of the state of how things are broke and how they get fixed. And you guys are on track to fix a lot of things, and there's going to be a lot of states or a lot of counties that will say, wow, look what Shelbyville's doing. For those that weren't at the meeting in January of last year, I urged all the new board members, and I'll echo it again, please don't turn to other counties as a justification for doing business. Because the question isn't how are they doing it, the question is what does the law say we should or shouldn't do? And we see that all the time. And I appreciate it, and I get it. Well, we're not hitting them like we're hitting you guys. No, we're not. We did several years ago, and it's in the record. And we will address it. And I appreciate the wind farm issue coming up. One thing I urge, back to reading the statutes, a zoning purpose, read that purpose, is to protect. It's for the safety and health of the people and protect property values. When you talk to any assessors out there and you look at the history of assessments after wind farms, property values decline. When that happens, your tax base declines. In that regard, do you know if is your tax assessment or supervisor assessment here tonight? A question that you may ask, and I don't know if it's happening in Shelby County, we've identified it in Edgar County, which we're going to address, and Coles County, commercial towers. They're taxing the square footage of the base. They're not taxing the commercial structure itself. Well, that means we're all picking up the tab for some private business. They need to tax the actual structure, and that hasn't been happening in many counties. If the proper assessments get done and the bills are sent to the right people, which in this case the bill should have been sent to Farmington County, but once those happen, everybody else ends up paying less because more people are paying into that pool. So there's a lot of different issues, but rest assured we will address those.
I do have a point to make.
Yeah.
Do you realize you do it, that you bring up other counties to us, but when we bring up other counties to you, you say don't use them as an example? So, you just gave us some examples. He talked about Cook County. I mean, we all talk about other counties. Both sides do.
Oh, we talk about it, but not in an aspect of, well, let's do what they're doing as a justification. That's what I'm talking about. Don't use another county's actions as the reason unless you know their actions are true and proper. Because we see that. And like I said over a year ago, we've run into this with 911 and some of the things 911 agencies are doing with billing. 911 is an emergency operations communication center. We have some of them that are billing for non-emergency calls. Well, guess what? They're not supposed to take non-emergency calls. You know why? It's a crime. It's in the criminal statute to call 911 when it's not an emergency. So why are they taking non-emergency calls? Because these people don't want to answer a telephone. but they're charging public bodies for non-emergency dispatches. There's no statutory provision to do that. And we've been fighting that one for years, but we've got some counties that have stopped it, some that haven't. Those who want to do it look at those that are doing it and say, well, they're doing it, so why can't we? Well, then we have to explain why they can't. And I've said over and over, don't take our word for it. Ask for a legal written opinion that cites statute and case law to support the position. That, it's hard to find that ever happening. Thank you. Yes.
It's going to be hard to explain to the farmer, though, when he paid almost $40,000 last.
I can't hear what he's saying, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
I said it's going to be hard to explain to this farmer. I'm a farmer, and this is hard for me to understand. He paid almost $40,000 on his lease.
I get that.
And then I've done a lot of research, and this has been a county farm a long time.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's been in the poor farm part, the house. It was tore down, I think it says in 48 or 46 or something like that.
Right.
So it's been rented out all them years, and somebody's took care of the taxes, so why this year, all at once, it's illegal?
Well,
I mean, we did, when it stopped, they should have known. Somebody should have, General Assembly should have said, look, you're doing wrong.
I won't argue that. There's a lot of things, what's called first impression, it's never been challenged or it's never been brought up to anybody's attention. We brought this up over a year ago. So it's, yes, sir, it's February of last year I brought it up.
You brought it up after we signed the farm lease.
You
I brought it up.
that meeting that we decided on the lease.
Yeah, I brought it up a year ago. You shook your head no. I brought it up in February of last year at the lake when you had your meeting out there. That was a year ago. I don't know when you signed the
We were
lease.
in the lake in February.
But the one passed the hills that day.
My point being, it got brought up, it wasn't a time thing that, oh gosh, maybe it may have been, hey, you had something on the agenda, hey guys, there's something we need to let you know. It wasn't a matter of, and I get your point, it's been for years, there's also people that don't pay the property tax. Those are all things that need to be addressed. Now, am I saying go send the property tax to the farmer? Technically, that's who should get it. If you don't send it to him, he's not going to pay it. Whether the county wants to take action against him, that's entirely up to you guys. Because right now, there's a whole bunch of mobile homes that nobody's taking action to collect tax on. You don't have to take action on it, as far as collecting from.
we'll get into this discussion later on in the meeting. Martha, I'll give you one more.
I just want to say I'm extremely disappointed in some of the board members that are attacking the Edmond County watchdogs for pointing out to us what it is that, as a county and as a county board, we might not be doing this legally. Terry, they bring up they say don't look to other counties to prove that you're doing it right. At the same time, out of the same mouth, they're saying those counties aren't doing it right. They're not following statute. As a taxpaying citizen, I really don't care what any other county is doing other than Shelby County, and I want to see Shelby County follow the statutes that govern them and spend the taxpayer dollars in a legal fashion. To Jesse, I would say, I understand this has been going on for decades and decades and decades, and therein lies the issue. This has been going on for decades with county board members long before any of you were on this board. Did absolutely nothing. It was a gentleman's handshake. It was you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You pad my pocket, I'll pad yours. As taxpaying citizens, that's the stuff we're sick and tired of. Sick and tired of it. It's time to get it right. And as taxpaying citizens, we're counting on each and every single one of the 22 of you, along with Nicole as the state attorney, to get it right. Please, get it right.
It only take a second. Mr. Allen, if you felt attacked, which I think you can more than defend yourself, you're very good at that. But if you feel attacked, that was not an attack.
No,
Okay.
none of this is ever personal.
Okay.
I welcome it because you've got 22, 23, 24 county clerk in the state attorney. You've got all these people that you all have a brain.
Right.
You all may have an idea or something that you've come across that, hey, we missed. And we're all for it. I don't take it as an attack. I understand that.
Yeah.
And our goal is to answer questions and make sure it's being done right. That's all.
Thank you.
But you got it.
Hold on, I had Mr. Williams. some reason I'm not on a first name basis right now. All I can think of his last name, so Jeremy.
That's okay. I took a few notes. I had the privilege of going to the farm committee meeting yesterday afternoon, and I was pretty impressed with a lot of things. I wanted to give some people some credit. I appreciated our state's attorney's research and objectivity. One of the first things I heard her say yesterday was the county has options. You can sell the ground. It is an option. Nobody was necessarily against that based on details. Mr. Bennett's done a heck of a lot of work. His eyes have probably been ready to bug out of his head with all the phone calls and emails and research and everything, and I appreciate the time and effort that's gone into that. Mr. Poe commented he realized the legal predicament offered, and he offered some seasoned knowledge and experience. I appreciate his words. And Jesse wants to honor the farmer, which I think is important. We are a farming community, that was said several times. He expressed concerns that if the ground is sold, the money can't just be frittered away. And I've had that same concern for a year since this issue was first raised. If the ground is sold, if the government was in charge of the desert, we have a shortage of sand in about 6 months. If we sell the ground, that's money, and it can't just disappear into nowhere. It's got to be protected, invested wisely. We can't just blow that money. I was asked yesterday for my opinion, and I said I'd have one tonight. I think the licensure of the farm may be a bit risky. It may work, I don't know, but it may be a bit risky and could continue the county on unsure legal ground, just because there are a lot of question marks around it. Will it work? Will it be legal? What will the findings be? I also think, as we all know, the county has a lot of issues on its list of things to deal with, and this is one that, while it's big, it can be dealt with pretty easily, pretty simply, quickly, and legally. One of my primary concerns is the taxes. I really don't want my treasurer put in a position where she's asked to do something illegal, like pay the taxes. We know what happens when we ask this treasurer to do something that's illegal, and hopefully we've decided not to put her in that position again. I personally, whether this is legal or not, I personally think it's unfair for the farmer to be charged the taxes, because he never agreed with that. Nobody agreed with that. Now the law may say something different. That's my 2 cents coming from me. Once the agreement was entered into, despite the fact that it's illegal and therefore null and void from the very beginning, there was no good way out of this, and that's why we're having trouble resolving it now. So I appreciate the situation that the board is in. If the county charges the farmer taxes, I feel like that's going back on the county's word. I'm not sure that that's right. The county needs to maintain its honor and integrity. But everyone also took an oath of office to agree to keep their word, to protect the tax-paying voting citizens of the county, and I think that's a primary responsibility. That is the law. If legal, I'll add that in there, if legal, I'm asking the board to sell the ground. As much as personally it annoys me, displeases me, I think that's a good solution. And again, if possible, include the taxes in the sale price of the ground, if that's legal. If we can do that, that way the farmer doesn't pay it, and the county doesn't pay it. So you're keeping your honor, you're keeping your integrity, you're staying true to your word, you're not messing over the farmer, and the taxes get paid. So if that's all legal, that's what I'm asking the board to do. Sell the ground, put the back taxes in the sale price, and that way everybody's whole. If I'm correct, and if that works with the law. That's what I got.
Thank you. I had, Mr. Kraft.
All right, I forgot one thing on you, Bobby. The lady in the back of the room has been ahead of 2 or 3 people. Keep reading over. You want to talk?
Yeah, I was getting ready to head back there.
All I want to say, my 2 cents as a taxpayer, for God's sake, let's start doing legal. Okay? Not what everybody else is doing. Legal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, one thing I that invalidates the lease from the beginning. If you declare the lease invalid, there's no leaseholder, there's nobody to send tax bills to. But then you might screw yourself for next year if you try to let the farmer use property.
What are you suggesting, they give him his money back?
No. Why would I suggest that?
Well, if his lease is invalid.
That was my suggestion. I'm not suggesting give any money back, because if you give money back, then you have to get all the profits from the crop, because he was a farmer without permission. All I'm saying is that there was no written lease, there was no leaseholder.
Did he jump Bill on the grass?
I don't know, Lynn, did you?
The city owns some ground it's part of Glenwood Cemetery, but cities have different rules than counties. They have more freedom to lease. The county is pretty limited with that. There are just different rules that apply to municipalities and counties, but they do own ground. It's by the Glenwood Cemetery that they lease out.
Mr. Chairman,
I have Lynn over here.
I yield to Earl because he raised his hand earlier.
That is true. Thank you.
Just to go back to what Edgar County's done for the airport. They came out and looked at us and explained things that we were doing wrong. So they did a lot of research and found some statutes that went back into the 40s that gave the airport the right to lease property to farmers. Maybe we need to turn that property over to the airport where it'd be legal to that statute. And there's a few other things, adjoining property and stuff. But if it wasn't for them guys, we wouldn't have known exactly if we were doing things right or wrong. And then going back to the taxes, I think everybody in here would like a free ride on taxes for some years too. You know, so I think Bobby's going to cover that.
Well, I really think that we need to, we've got a big agenda here, guys.
I just want to let it know that every county does do good for the county because they taught us some things that we worked on. And then after we've done what we're supposed to, we haven't seen a backfoot in it. We're doing what we're supposed to.
And
that's all they're wanting to do.
And when we get to the body of the meeting, we will start addressing all these issues from side to side here as I see it, not side. Mr. President.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman. I heard about the taxes tonight, I voted the tax thing up late last night. I made up my mind of how a fully written legal opinion on these taxes. I was going to pull this from the agenda today. Now the Herald is feedback about the taxes, I can see that's the right thing to do. And refer this back to the state's attorney for a legal written opinion on these taxes. Maybe we can look at the right solution as we discussed in the committee that Jeremy was also talking about. Maybe there is a solution there that's not paying the taxes. I'd like to pull that.
Okay. Is there any other public comment from the public? Hearing none, I'd like to move on into item 5. Mr. Malega, Health Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to come forward, Bobby, the opportunity to come and give you an update on COVID-19. Almost 1 year into COVID in our nation, in our state, and in our county. A lot of things have changed since July when some of you were here on the board and some of you were not. But at that time, we pretty much had just single-digit cases of COVID-19 at that time, and most of it was up north, and we were just trying to make sure that we were doing all we could do to keep that at that point. As time progressed, though, and the virus spread, and as we, visit different places in our state, the outbreak became clear in Shelby County, and basically October and November, we had our highest cases at this point. And in fact, at that point in October, November, we had over 1/3 of all COVID-19 cases, so almost 600 cases in 1 month. And today we have 2,041 confirmed cases. There's about another 195 probable out there. Of that right now, today, since July, We actually had 0 cases today, first time since July of this year. And I think there's hope, and I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully we can stay at that level and move into the spring, and we can start putting this virus behind us, and we can get back to our lives as normal. I know everybody's frustrated with isolation and quarantine and not being able to have basketball games like we did before, which we are doing now and that. And with vaccinations and rollouts of vaccinations and that, as ask for your patience, we will try to serve every person that wants to be vaccinated. We did not actually get vaccine until right after Christmas, but we got 50 doses that time. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for couriering that from Champaign, Illinois, directly to our hospital. That's where we basically put our first vaccine at, was at Good Shepherd Hospital, to start vaccinating our healthcare workers so that we can keep our hospital open. And at that time, we did not actually even get any other additional vaccine until right after the first of the new year at that point. And today, right now, we have completed what's called Phase 1A. Phase 1A is all the healthcare workers in the county, all your dentists, all your doctors, throughout the whole entire county, including like SIU, Clinic of Moequa. Everybody who wanted a vaccination got a vaccination, and Phase 1A is complete. So with the second dose, and our healthcare workers, and our dentists, and our pharmacists are all protected at this time. Also, all our skilled nursing facilities have received the second dose. And those were with on the pharmaceutical program that was rolled out by the state through CVS and Walgreens. They were contracted to do those skilled nursing facilities. And all our assisted living now has had the first round of the vaccine at this point. So our Phase 1A is completed, and then we basically towards the last week of January, we opened up into Phase 1B, 65 and older. We originally started out for a week at 75 and older, based on the CDC recommendations, and the governor changed that and lowered it to 65. So basically, we started with 65 and older, and essential workers that were 65 and older, and have been vaccinated. That we've done over 750 vaccinations. The health department has operating clinics Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do about 200 a day. We've sent special teams out to the schools. Right now, that's our first organization that we're working with to try to get all the teachers in the school system vaccinated. We will have all the schools completely vaccinated by the end of the month, with at least the first dose at that point, to try to keep our schools open in that. On the second doses so far, we're in the cycle now of bringing people back. For the second doses, we've given 112 people been vaccinated with the second dose from the health department. That completed their 2 dose. We expect that probably towards the end of the month, Johnson & Johnson will roll out 100 million doses to the United States. That's 1 dose. It's 85% effective, 72% effective against the South African variant. That would be 1 dose and gone. I think that's going to be a game changer at that point. Today, we have basically planned on public clinics, drive up in that in the first week or 2 of March, where we'll set up an appointment, you'll drive through. Right now in Illinois, the governor, basically 78% of all the vaccine in Illinois has been completed at this point. Only 22% is left in the state. So we're still waiting on additional vaccine. And I apologize to people that are waiting to get vaccinated and having to wait. We are getting to them in a systematic order and getting those people. We've had a lot of praise on how we've been handling some of the vaccinations, because we haven't turned people away and drive up clinics and making people get in line and stay out there all night and wait in their cars and those kind of things like that. So I think most of the people that have come through our clinics have basically been very happy. We don't charge any money whatsoever, no administration fee, no insurance billing. You basically sign your name, read the consent, get the fact sheet, decide if you want it, you get the shot and you're gone 10 minutes later. So in your packet, I give you all the statistics in that. I give you some of the graphs where you can see that the clusters formed around Halloween and at that time, and the outbreak occurred higher at that point between that and November. Our deaths also went up in our nursing homes because our cases were so low. But this week, we've moved down, within the last 2 weeks, we moved down from 7.4% on a rolling average from week to week to 4.5%, now 3.5%, being released tomorrow on the website. So at this point, we're no longer in warning for coronavirus. I anticipate what everything looks like, that we're still going to progress and minimize those cases. We have, like I said, 20 active cases. That's very low of positive people. And as long as we can keep that down, then I think we're going to be in good shape. Again, spring here another 2 weeks and that. So what I'm thinking is at some point, if there's no objections to that, we could move down to once a week reporting from daily reporting that we've been doing every day for 7 months to all the department heads and to all the first responders and to all the county board people. And just do that basically. Report once a week on the figures and get those out on a Monday from the previous week, and then it's a holiday the next day. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I want to know how hard your health department has been hit financially because of this.
How hard?
Yeah.
Actually, it's not the case whatsoever. We've been given multiple grants to from the federal government side, federal money. We're actually receiving $125,000 mass vaccination grant. So really, financially, that is not the case. It's really the opposite. And that's why we talk about that time with the NECA money, that I couldn't even use the money, but hopefully Shelby County was able to use that and put that good.
Steve, I got this question. Is you were talking about the Johnson & Johnson, and then also you have Moderna, is that right?
You only have Moderna because the Pfizer requires ultra low temperature, like 70 below zero, special types of freezers that we don't have the ability to handle now. Most of the hospitals do that, and most of the big health departments. Okay.
Now, if you receive the Moderna, and then you go to Johnson & Johnson for the second shot, can you explain it?
Okay, if you get Moderna, you need the Moderna second shot, second dose, 28 days up to 10 days later. If you get Pfizer, you need a Pfizer second dose shot, 21 days up to 10 days later. And Johnson & Johnson is just one dose. That's it, one dose, you're gone. And that's why it's going to be a game changer. It's going to make a big difference.
Do you still have to wear a mask and be protected if you've taken the
Good
vaccine?
question. Well, we just come out today. They just come out today. CDC changed the guidance, and that if you are fully vaccinated and it's been 2 weeks after your vaccination, no longer have to quarantine anymore if you're exposed to coronavirus. You wouldn't have to if you're fully vaccinated, but you still, though, they say you're still supposed to wear a mask and you're still supposed to social distance.
See, what's the point of getting the vaccination then if you still got to do all that?
Well, another good, I guess it's probably more than anything they're concerned with this variant that they're talking about coming out. That, there's one that's going to, there's 22 cases in Illinois of the variant. Like I said, I know we heard it fast, we're going to be done with it. I'm 100% behind all that. Get back to normal lives. But that's what they say. But the good thing is you don't have to isolate now. We follow CDC guidelines, 10 days only for quarantine. You can test out after the 7th day with a PCR test.
But they still don't want you in nursing homes or hospitals, if you've had the vaccine, they still...
We've been called to the nursing homes now. They're opening up. They're letting people come in. So, because of positivity levels now.
They're letting you come in?
We can go visit if you want.
Okay, they haven't notified us yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I got a question.
yes, sir.
The reports you give are really interesting. I read them every day and that. And I can agree going to it weekly. But where do you get all that data from that you put out to us?
The local health departments use the Illinois National Disease Electronic Surveillance System called IMEDS, and it's every communicable disease, whether it's tuberculosis or mumps, measles, rubella. And each one of those are done by a laboratory, and they have to be reported in a certain time frame. And then we have to do the case management and follow up with the public to basically minimize people's spreading communicable disease. So they're coming from the state laboratories and the private laboratories into the state system.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering.
Yeah, so one of the functions of the local health department is surveillance of the community for communicable disease. Unfortunately, COVID's a big one. So, yes, Kurt.
Do you know how many cycles your testing is taking? PCR testing, how many cycles they use?
I think it's only about 60% effective on average on PCR.
How many cycles?
Cycles.
When they do the testing, they talk about a 30 cycle test, a 35, a 40, or 50. How many cycles?
I don't really know that. I really don't know that at that point. I mean, I thought there was a cultured out test tube type of test, but maybe it's not. I don't know. It's done by CVS, it's done by Sarah Bush, it's done by state lab. Yes.
Now, Steve, the number of people that's been vaccinated the second dose, like 116.
121. Now that's more. There's more than 121. That's just the health department did.
Has any of those had a reaction?
Most common reaction is a big rash around your injection site, like a baseball. And then you get in the second dose. I'm warning you now. Second dose, maybe. Well, let me tell you this. We did all community service people, and we gave them the second dose yesterday, and we have 10 people that didn't go to work today, and they all have symptoms, so they're down for at least a 24-hour period. It's not a live virus, but people, you're reacting to it, so you feel chills, you feel sick. Sean's had it.
I was sick. I was sicker than a dog.
Sicker than a dog. There we go. But you rebounded about 40 hours later. Right. Did you have any reaction on your arm? And we're giving you good needles. We're not even using the needles that the syringes the state gave us. We buy separate needles that are better, that don't give your arm as much. They're thinner, and they're not as long, and it changes how sore your muscle is. So we pay for those. Any other questions?
Steve, just to ask a question, going from a daily report to a weekly report, is that something you can do, or is the board going to take action?
No, I can do that. That'll make it a lot easier and you know what, like I said, I'm hoping that maybe you only have a couple cases a week, and we'll just report that. I can do now on Monday for the previous week. And if we go back where things are changing, and God forbid that, then we'll go back to daily reporting, and we start going from blue to orange again. That would be the rolling average about 8% at this point, which now we're down to 3.5. That's tomorrow. So that's really good.
Good job, Steve.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I'll take the floor. Item 6 is changes to the order of business. In item number 13, I want to change it to include all committee meetings shall be voice recorded, said recording kept on file in the clerk's office for a period of 1 year. I'll make a motion to accept the change to rule number 13 to include all committee meetings shall be voice recorded, said recordings be kept on file in the clerk's office for a period of 1 year. Can I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it, but
Yep. Discussion.
is every committee chairman going to get a recorder?
So we have recorders in the clerk's office. Would you like to elaborate?
All the way into here to get a recorder?
I actually purchased a couple. I can get more. They are recorders that are comparable to our current system that we have, so they'll be easy for me to upload and everything. So basically, yeah, if you're going to have a meeting, you need to get a recorder so you can take it to your meeting and then bring it back following your meeting.
That seems kind of difficult for me. I got 25 miles to go and get a recorder before you leave at 5.
Well, I live actually right by the airport, so I'm pretty sure I can drop one off on my way home for the airport meeting.
That'd be what I think.
So the reason I'm asking for this addition is because many of us don't have the opportunity to go to these committee meetings. And over the last year plus, I personally have been disappointed in the minutes coming out of the committee meetings. I know there's been lots of discussion. I mean, you have a 3-hour meeting, but there's about a paragraph of minutes. Well, what was said, what was talked about? That's what I want to know. I think it would be prudent for everybody to have that. We can't make it to the physical meeting. However, we can listen to the meeting as it rolled out in the recording. Then we can all be educated coming into the board meetings on why the committee is taking action. That's really where I stand there, and that's why I'm asking for approval of this. Go ahead.
With that, and I understand what you're saying, I also would like to hear what's going on with the different committees. But does that mean I got to come up to the courthouse to receive those, or it's going to be this, on your tablet where you can go ahead and download it?
We have these voice recorders. When I talk about committees, it's the 18 standing committees. So if you're on an outstanding committee that's not listed in the rules of order, I wouldn't expect those minutes, because that is actually a body separate from the board. What I'm asking for is the minutes of those meetings be kept for the board committees. Any more questions? Mark?
I think what Lynn's referring to is, can he basically arrange to listen to it from home?
Yes.
At a later
Oh,
time period?
like stream it out.
Yeah, I mean, they're public, they're open to the public. They should be open to the public. And it should be open to the board too. But going up to the courthouse, to listen to 3 hours worth of meetings for one meeting doesn't sound, it's not a good thing.
Well, there's two ways to look at this. One is we can put it in the rules of order, or I'll just put a standing order for every committee meeting that I want a voice recording from one of the members. And I FOIA that, but that's FOIAble if it's recorded. So, and it may also, there is no restriction on recording. We have video and voice recording here. I'm asking that we just do it on our own, on a regular basis. Sure.
So you're saying that you got to truck up me 50 miles and we'll get one or many on it, but you live closer than anybody.
Those recordings, they can be emailed. The recordings can be emailed.
They can be emailed, they can be uploaded to the website if we ever get our website up and rolling. There's just, this is where my brain train was going here a while back.
Get the cart before the horse. If we don't have the website up, or we can download that to the website.
Well, if we have the recordings, then we can upload it when we have the website going. But if we don't have the recordings,
If you email it, yeah, I'm good with that.
yeah, and that's the idea, is to have it available. So if you want to know what happened in Gary's legislative committee, you could call Jessica and say, hey, please send me the minutes of that, or the voice recording of that, so I can listen to it and understand what's going on. That's
I'll be requesting every month.
Yeah.
I'll just put every.
So if Lenny requested, I requested, how are you going to duplicate it?
right. You just copy and paste it. But
You're talking about good ones or?
voice. So whatever's on this machine right here, it's just it's a sound bit. It's in the computer. Click, paste, send it, and you've got it. You can.
We can hear it from our computers then.
Yep.
I think that's what Lenny was asking.
Yep. So
if we get it clipped to us, send it to us, we can download and hear it from iPad or.
Mr. Patterson, it was kind of a race there.
Quick question, this has nothing to do with the recording, but the line right before, the line right, the line right before there that says that everyone at the committee is to sign sign those minutes is if we wait till the next month and sign them when we approve the minutes and hold those minutes for a month. And to me, we got more details if they're typewritten. They're much more readable if they're typewritten. But I don't see in today's world that that is very doable to sign those minutes unless we wait till the next meeting. Does that make sense?
Right.
I see no reason to have that if we're going to type them. And a lot of us are going to type them. I don't know why we want to sign the minutes.
That's not part of the change. This is in addition to.
I know, but we're changing 13. I'm saying I'd like to eliminate that need to sign the minutes because a lot of the meetings, it's not possible to sign unless you wait till the next meeting a month later.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because we don't approve the minutes of today's meeting until next month. So why wouldn't you hold the minutes for the prior month to next month?
That's fine. I mean, we haven't been doing that, but we sure.
Right. The minutes have been just sent right as you quit.
So just hold them till the next meeting and then approve them and sign them and then send them in justice.
With that said, if you have a voice recording, the chairman of the committee could review the voice recording and make better minutes as written. That way it's a written document and put on record. This is where I come from,
And that's what I agree with. That I think the minutes are more accurate when they are typewritten after the meeting.
Yeah.
And currently, we've been sending in, and if there's an amendment, the amendment gets made at the next meeting, and the amendment gets sent out. If not, the minutes that are typed up 2 or 3 days after meetings go out to the whole board. So if we're going to have to sign them, we're going to have to start holding them for a month before we can send them out. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to change that part.
Mr. Chairman,
I had that.
This is just an observation, and that's all it is. And I'm not going to speak for Barbara, I'm not going to speak for David, because I don't know what's in their heads. You're going to be really disappointed in fees and salaries, minutes, and an audio recording, because we don't have discussion. We have a stack of paper about 2 inches thick that all of us are going through. And we're checking line by line to make sure everything's in agree and we're signing off. Then I hand my stack to David, David hands his stack to Barb, Barb hands her stack to me, and we do that 3 times. And we have, our minutes are, all 3 of us show that we went through the 3 stacks of paper. We started at this time, and left at this time, and that's it. And to have an audio recording is just going to be crickets.
Sure.
It's just an observation.
And with that said, I would venture to guess you could, this, good observation. But if there's discussion that was had, if you can't recall it in your minutes, then you could always.
The discussion we had last time was sort of stuff like, and I thought you said a tire for my truck, what kind of you recommended, just while we're doing a check off on the paper.
Well, this might keep the conversation germane to the committee.
What's the point that you have written notes that you're going to voice record everything? Why do you have it?
Right. Oh, they require written minutes. But the voice recording would help you write the written part. I'm not saying, hey, let your voice be the vote. But, this is what I was seeing, this is why I was asking for it.
Look, we've got a lot of questions here. Can we table this till the next meeting? I mean, it's not that we're not going to approve something like this, but we've got too many questions.
Sure.
I'm asking you. I'm not making the motion.
David, you have a question?
I'll vote.
Hold on. Call vote. All in favor of making the change to the order number 13, all in favor say aye.
Roll call. Aye. Roll call.
We're not. We had a call to vote. I had a motion, I had a second. All in favor say aye. Raise your hands if you're ayes.
Aye.
Eyes are raised, hand.
Well, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
What's raised hand? Nay or yea?
Yes, all in favor? Yeah. Motion fails, 12 to 6. Assuming all in favor or all opposed, same sign.
For the reason, just bring it up next month.
If you want to table, just make the motion table. I know, but I was, just make the motion, just move it.
One quick note, you know that closed sessions are mandatory to be recorded.
Well, yes.
Right. I'm just referring to committees.
Why don't we do it for committees? Is it not recorded?
They're not closed. They're open.
Okay, moving on. Changes to number 14, I think this is kind of non-negotiable, but last month we approved the executive committee adding a committee to the list of committees. The committee, or number 14, needs to reflect there's 18 standing committees. We did not change that the last go around. I'm asking for approval to edit number 14 to reflect 18 standing committees. Can I get a motion? Gary moves. Have a second over here. Gergany, Patterson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, next on the list is the Title VI Transportation Plan. This is for econ. This is basically to keep us compliant in the county program. And I've really lost my bearings. Brian, did you have any input on this?
No, I did not at this time.
Erica, do you? This is basically a formal thing between us and econ that we have to have in place.
And this does not affect the countywide, it just affects the CEFS program. It's not for the county, it's that program alone. It's basically something we have to do, and I talked to Beth Beckmarks today. They were given a template, they drawn this up, it's been approved by the state, a couple of the other counties within our econ have approved. But it's not countywide, it's that program alone.
So I'm making a motion to approve Shelby County Title VI Transportation Plan. Kenny Barr, second. Any more discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Up next is Terry Metzger, Zoning Committee. You have the floor.
Okay. It's been brought to our attention numerous times, we're getting a lot of phone calls and we don't have anybody to answer the phone. So I've run into a guy here in Shelbyville that turns out he's the zoning man for Shelbyville. And as he told me, he doesn't want the job, but he's happy to help us out until somebody comes along that will take it, hopefully in the next 2 months. And we do have a guy that's interested in it, but he's not really available for a couple of months. Gary Townsend, lifelong resident of Shelbyville, most of you guys know him. He'll be an interim zoning administrator. I brought him to the board of Bob Simpson and Denny and me, and the state's attorney was there, so they did meeting. It's with our complete committee approval that we asked for you guys to approve him as an interim zoning administrator to hand out permits and things like that. If there's any questions about the resolution, you might direct them to her.
I move to approve. Motion by Kenny Barr and second by Paul Kennedy to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Shelby County and the City of Shelbyville zoning administrator on an interim basis. I have a motion and a second. Now we'll do discussion.
The monetary value we're going to be paying this guy, or what are we going to be paying?
$750 a month.
How much?
$750 a month, and not to exceed 50 hours of work per month. It's in the resolution.
Gary?
Has this been checked out through our state's attorney?
Yes.
You no problem with it, or?
I was at a meeting, 2 meetings actually, and I drafted the resolution.
You might tell them about the intergovernmental.
Yes, I've also talked to Jack Kiley, the city attorney, and he prepared the intergovernmental agreement that's also to be voted on tonight. And I don't know if it's gone before the city council yet, but he's going to present it if it has not.
Just point of order, just because I am a city council member, we did approve that at the last city council meeting. We did vote to approve that intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we had a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Shelby County and the city of Shelby. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Then, do we need to approve the resolution to hire Gary Townsend? Does that fall COG inclusive?
I don't know.
I thought the vote was on the resolution. We also need to approve the intergovernmental agreement, but I thought the vote was on the resolution.
It was on the resolution.
I reiterated it incorrectly then, because I was reading it top to bottom. So, do we want to start right back from the beginning? So the motion on the floor was the resolution approval of to hire Gary Townsend. And that was the motion by Kenny Barr, seconded by Gary? Paul, sorry. Discussion was had that then the vote was to reflect on the motion of request approval for the resolution to hire Gary Townsend. Okay. We all agree to that. Next, we'll do the request approval for the intergovernmental agreement between Shelby County and the city of Shelbyville for zoning administrator services on an interim basis. Gary Durgan, motion. I got Don Tate second. Any discussion on that part? I think we had some questions that kind of got answered in the interim there. Any other concerns, questions, comments? All in favor of the intergovernmental agreement, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay.
No, thanks to our state's attorney. She did a really good job of keeping us in line and writing it up.
Well, something to be appreciated is the committees have been very busy this last 2 to 3 weeks especially. Lots of teamwork has gone forth. Very much appreciated by all. So we'll move on. Number 9 is Sean McQueen, the undersheriff. You have the floor.
First thing I needed to bring to you guys' attention was the petition to destroy and dispose of some county property that the sheriff's department has accumulated from time to time, just because of the sheer size of our department. We accumulate just some equipment that through the usage of the years of usage and it expiring, we let it sit around for a little bit and it's time to get rid of it. And that's pretty much what we're doing. Just a little house cleaning is pretty much what I call it. I believe you had in your packets the petition. The petition was drawn up by the state's attorney, so I believe you had it in your packets, and I'm just requesting the approval to be able to get rid of that equipment that's in the hall.
I would make a motion to do that.
Gary Patterson makes a motion to dispose. Patrick Lyons seconds the motion. Any discussion?
How are you going to dispose of that? Burn it or what?
No, the laptops, which are absolutely useless, those will get just donated. They'll get put back into our IT program, and the people that take care of our IT program will take them and dispose of them, because there's certain ways that those things have to be disposed of. The bulletproof vests that we have, I believe we've been doing some discussion with the city of Shelbyville and the chief of police at their police range. Those kind of things can always come in handy on a gun range. So there's a possibility we may be donating those just for some range usage. to protect things that may be around the range. So either way, one way or the other, those things will probably get placed somewhere where they can have some kind of use.
The reason I asked the question is because if we're going to dispose of stuff, we need to know where it's going and what it's doing. Because just like the firearms we had, where there's a question on that, where did they go? How come somebody tried to sell them or what? I just don't want to get into the same pickle that was trying to track something down a year from now. Where did it go?
Exactly. Well, the laptops are going to MyTech. MyTech is the ones that take care of all of our IT for the entire county. So MyTech's going to be taking those and disposing of those. And the bulletproof vests will, right now, we're trying to see if the Shelbyville Police Department wants to use them at the range and maybe wrap like their posts and things like that with them. That way, if a round gets going in the wrong direction, maybe one of their posts won't get demolished. So that's how we plan on trying to reuse those kind of things. But those are the two places right now. If Shelbyville doesn't end up wanting those old vests, one way or the other, we will dispose of them properly. We won't just, put them somewhere. We definitely can't give those to another agency. They're expired, so no other agency can take those. Yes.
Yeah, that is actually my concern, is if they're put up at the range, and I'm all for using anything for any kind of service law enforcement needs. Very much appreciate everything law enforcement does for it. But my concern is somebody going out there and getting hold of it and getting back in population. I've got to wonder, is there anything legal that says that thou must dispose of these vests thusly?
There's nothing like that. Yeah. I mean, there's no law that says they got to be disposed of that way. We definitely don't, on a liability and a risk management issue, we don't want to be issuing those to a police officer or a deputy sheriff to put on their bodies. So.
Yeah, I would just think that something like that that's got an expiry would have a process that needs to be followed for disposal.
Not that I know of, sir. I've never heard that. I've been a police officer for 3 years. I've never heard of it.
For one, I'm nervous about it.
Yeah, Sean, is there a breakdown of the Kevlar, or is it the outer material, or is there shelf life?
Actually, yeah. All body armor has expiration dates. It's definitely a degradation of the material. So after so many years, the material starts to degrade, and that's the reason why body armor manufacturers put expiration dates on them. And I'm sure there might be a cost issue or a profit issue with that too. But they're definitely, that is what happens. The degradation of the material goes down, so that way they pull them off of the police officer. That way, around goes through it. There's no risk management.
Now, the officers wear the vests and stuff every so often. Do they have to take them out and have them specially cleaned, or what?
No, not really. I mean, you can clean a vest just with any regular soap or water. That's usually what I do. But there's no special way to clean it.
Anything but bleach. Bleach breaks down Kevlar.
I can think of those, so yes.
In regards to computers, I'm assuming they have public files on them. How do you go in regards to your local record instruction? Because those are public records.
Yeah, as far as I know, they've all been removed. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it personally myself. I know that they were wiped, and that's what my senior sergeant told me. He was the one that handles it. He's our pretty much our equipment manager. So he said that they were wiped and kind of refreshed and put back to the original starting point is what I was told. So to be honest with you, I just don't know.
You could look into that, because if they were wiped, that's record destruction, and that can't happen.
Okay, well, maybe that's the wrong word. Okay. Of course. Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine that there's anything on there that's going to be of value to anybody. I was thought you were meaning that somebody was going to be able to get a hold of it and be able to see public records. I misunderstood.
Yeah, I think it was a computer that was used for public business. It's got public information that's spoilable.
Well, it was a law enforcement computer.
I just had some in my office, and we had other computers So it was put on, I mean, it was basically transferred to the new computer, or it is on our,
Well, I would assume that's probably what happened on these.
so they're not actually on, our stuff is not actually on that computer, it's stored on the network.
It's a server.
You know, and then that, so they're not, those, that, might anything might be wiped off of that specific computer, but it is then in turn backed up and it's on any replacement computer. So those, all of those files are still there and available.
Well, I don't believe, these laptops that I'm talking about, we don't, we're running plates and it's hooked up to a state computer, so I can't imagine that there's anything on these computers that.
Are these the ones in the slide there?
Yes, sir.
There's nothing, shouldn't be nothing on this.
There shouldn't be, yeah.
No.
I had Brian over here.
I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
I will look into that.
Right, so we had this was discussion on the petition to destroy and dispose, and that was by Patterson.
That's what I meant, the petition to destroy the property. Make that motion.
We've already got it on the floor. So are you calling the vote?
I'm calling the vote.
There we go. So we have the call to vote on the floor. All in favor of requesting approval to destroy and dispose of equipment? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Nay, I looked up and there is a legal process you have to follow with those bodies. Took me 30 seconds.
Well, no, it's out on public record. Please be advised.
If there is, we'll probably sort it that way. I think, are you talking of like making sure that a citizen doesn't possess money or
As
anything?
it goes in, they break it down by the different fibers, there are recoverable fibers. The idea is to make sure that nobody owns these fibers, give them to the black market, and have the wrong people be able to build body armor out of it, to people who are buying.
Thank you, appreciate that, thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Steve. That was my concern, and that I wanted to get that open in discussion before we voted on it, and unfortunately, that didn't.
We'll do it correct.
Oh, I have no
We'll
doubt.
do it.
I just wanted you to be aware.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, you have another point of business?
Yeah, well, I've been requested to finish a grant that was started last year. I believe it was initiated for a window replacement at the courthouse, and I believe it was initiated by Representative Albert and Senator Rose. I think they were the ones that assisted with starting this and helping us get it. We haven't got it yet, but we started the process. The grant is through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. It's a $250,000 grant. I believe the grant was started by Jared last year. There's still quite a bit of it to be finished, but we can definitely wrap it up. All I need is for you guys to approve Bobby to end up being a changeover of signatory for Bobby because the old chairman was a signatory on this grant. So I'm going to finish it up in the next few weeks, and then I'll present it to you hopefully whenever it's available. I'll let you know if we get it. So, anybody have any questions on that?
Barb made the motion to move the signatory to me from the old chairman. Patterson seconds.
Okay, I got this. Is that just for this thing or for all different things?
No, this is just for this DECO grant,
Okay.
which is the window grant, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had to do the same procedure on another grant. I had a motion and a second. Barb, Gary, we had discussion. Any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor of rolling the signatory to me, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Bobby, I'll track you down next week and have you sign it, okay?
Very good. I just would like to make one point of clarity. You can go ahead and sit down, or you can do whatever. He's probably going to get home. He's had a long day. I would like to make one point of clarification. There is, on the last motion that we approved, the petition to destroy, dispose of county property, then there's a semicolon, then request approval of resolution to dispose. I counted those as the same thing. Is there any need to make separate motions here? I don't think so. I saw those as the same thing. Okay. It's all inclusive, just want to make sure. Up next, Gary.
One thing on this grant that we're looking at on the windows is I'm glad we're getting our person in for zoning and someone answered the phone. We come close to losing that because nobody was answering the phone. And about 3 times the people with the grant called and could not get an answer here. And it's glad we've got somebody that's going to be manning that phone so we can get the thing back to people.
I have talked with Daniel, I am not point of contact, so
I wasn't worried about that. No, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Don Tate, you have the floor on the public buildings.
Okay, as the thing says, we have a drainage problem on the east side of the courthouse. Several years ago, I guess, when they put new sidewalks in, they left space along next to the building with no concrete, and now they put gravel in there. The courthouse roofs are places that don't have guttering on them, so the water runs off the roof, down onto the rock, percolates through the rock, and is coming through the basement walls, causing areas causing mold. The sheriff brought this to our attention, and he had a bid from Fox and Austin to have the rock removed and pour concrete from the sidewalk up to the side of the courthouse. The buildings committee questioned the estimate that he gave us, exactly what it all entailed besides putting concrete in there, and we requested that he go out and obtain some more information. Possibly was going to talk to the county engineer exactly what needs to be put into more or less a specification for doing this, so that we don't end up causing the same problem because we didn't put the concrete in there correctly. The bid from Fox and Austin was a little over $19,000, which was within it's under the $30,000 that can be spent if it's in the courthouse budget, and their budget can tolerate that, but at this point in time, I've been brought to your attention to know that it's something we're going to have to do if we don't want to keep causing more problems in the first floor of the courthouse. So, unless anybody's got any questions, why? Yes, Brian.
How large an area are you talking to?
Some places it's 2 feet, 2.5 feet. Some places it's less than that.
There's about 5 or 6 of these areas. We talked about it back when we did it originally, that all be covered, and just, again, to cut corners and not spend as much money. They decided to just put the sidewalks and fill those areas with gravel, and it's good, just what Kenny told us it was going to do.
My concern would be if you didn't get the right slope on the new concrete.
That's why we came in.
We're wanting to drill for
We're wanting to put
rebar.
slope it in there, and we're wanting to rebar the new into the old sidewalk so that there's no even of one and not the other, and we're trying to cover our bases to present future problems coming up.
Appreciate it.
Another thing we're talking about too is bringing the specs up to what we want, and then putting it back out and getting some of the local county finishers to make estimates on it, or bid on it, and we don't have to bid it, but I always like to get it.
A couple estimates, sure. Pat.
I heard a lot of answers here. Who's they?
What are we talking about?
I heard they used several times. I'm assuming they is who put the sidewalk in initially, and I even heard the terms cut corners and make the cost be lower. So who is they?
County board, probably.
The former board.
County board poured the concrete, they designed it.
Well,
and
no, Fox, they did the original walks, but they did them according to what was requested.
in my mind, that's who owes us fix it.
I think they did what we asked for. That's the problem. Kenny, did you feel like it was turned down on, poured it all the way up along the walls? It's less material. We're not going to cutting corners. We're just, we do that too many times instead of going.
I guess somebody's there, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump on that.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, but,
So
it's gotta be fixed.
what he's saying is the former boards or the former committees looked at cutting costs and why pour right up into this area when we can save the money. That's kind of what,
And that's okay.
that's the
As
thing.
long as you put in the infrastructure underneath it to drain the water away from that building.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like that's all covered at the time, and nobody listened.
Yeah, that's why the committee is working on this.
Thank you guys for uncovering.
Other projects too, like we put in the heating system.
Yeah.
We knew we needed a generator,
Yeah.
and that was gonna be a bunch of money, so we were told, no, you can't spend that extra money.
But thank you guys for getting to the root cause.
You need to fix it then, and you fix it later at a higher price.
We don't address the root cause.
No, it's a problem.
Okay, good discussion. Gary, Johnson.
Don, you did say the county engineer was going to be involved with this project.
Don, the sheriff, was going to talk to the engineer to get his suggestions, I guess, of exactly how we need to request the concrete to be poured.
Good.
Do you have any comment?
Mr. Spencer, would you have any input on that at this point?
did call me this afternoon.
Okay, so we're fresh on this.
He mentioned both the east and west side.
Correct.
Okay, because I think you said the leaking was only on the east?
No, I said both sides. I mean, I think I did, but,
Yeah.
well, I might have said it wrong, but it's on both sides.
I did look at it, and I know what you're talking about. But a lot of times what goes on underground is kind of a guesswork. So it's hard to prove a lot of times why a basement is leaking. That's all I can say. You might end up pouring this concrete, find out the water table or the foundation drain is plugged, and you're still leaking. That's all I'm saying.
We've got some rough areas that still let the water come down on the sidewalks. And somebody said, well, why didn't they fix that? Well, when we put the roof on, the gutter was put back just like it was before. Out on the four corners there, there's small areas of slope roof that there's never been guttering on. There's not a good place to bring the guttering to. And so it's just a problem that's been there and still.
Okay, are we looking for approval to take action or just discussion?
I think just discussion on it, once we figure out where we're at,
Then you'll come back with
cost-wise,
it.
so forth, we'll be back.
Okay. Any other points of questions for the committee before we move on? Okay, thank you, Don. Moving on to Erica, the treasurer, for the expense report.
Y'all have it, I'm going to read tonight. We have a beginning balance in the general fund of $3,056,262.55. Revenue for January was $402,244.61. Expenses were $345,63.53. Leaving a balance of $3,145,639.15. $334,448 of that is restricted funds, leaving an available cash balance of $2,811,190.29. One thing I would like to add there that's a little bit deceptive, we had a stop loss check from our self-insurance company. We received a check at the very end of the month that got put in that fund. It was a $207,942 check. So it's showing in, it turned around and went out the very beginning of February, but it does kind of make that a little bit deceiving. In reality, in that account, at the end of the month, would have been $2,603,247. That is a wash, but because of the timing of it coming in, and then us paying those claims, I just wanted to make you aware of that. Any questions?
Any questions for Erica?
No, will that number change next month? That will show the right number there down there?
We'll probably skew next month because the expenses will actually show on next month. Where it kind of, in reality, the expenses for January were $548,940.
But because that reinsurance, you know, we credit it to an expense account, because it's an in and out account, where our reinsurance for our health insurance picks up claims after a certain amount on an employee. So then they pay the bill, but they send us the check, but we actually pay the claims then, so we have to deposit it in the bank, then those claims get paid. So it's skewing the numbers a little bit this month, and I'll try to remember next month, because next month it may skew the expenses is actually $207,000 more than what they actually were in that month.
January 5-week month, is that why the liability is so high?
Now, the liability is so high on the payroll because in January, we did the retro pay for the sheriff's department, which was $172,000+, and with all of the IMRF and Social Security and whatnot, it ended up being a little about $205,000. That's why that number is so high. The retro pay.
That's what that's improving the
Of the contract. Any other questions?
Keep the comments to yourself. Need to, do you want to move on, or what?
Yeah, I've got the next two. So basically, I'm asking for approval of recertification resolution for participation of elected officials in IMRF. It's a form that IMRF sends us, and the board has to pass every 2 years.
Sorry. Barb makes the motion to approve the recertification resolution for participating by elected officials in IMRF. Barb made the motion to do this, and Bob Simpson second. Any discussion on this recertification resolution?
Just one quick one. Are there any change in terms, or is it the same? Okay, thank you.
Hearing no other discussion or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And if we could back up to 11 to keep consistent with the past, make a motion to approve the treasurer's report. I have a second. I made the motion. Don takes seconds. All in favor of approving the treasurer's report, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on. 13.
Jessica and I are requesting approval for the county to go with CIC for our financial, it's not really a software, it's a perpetual lease agreement of their software system. And Jessica's office with accounts payable, my office with payroll, and then all of the financial stuff that we deal with in my office.
What's CIC?
Computer
Information concepts.
information concept.
Earl Baker makes a motion to accept the contracts with CIC.
I say.
Gary Gertie seconds. Any questions, comments?
How much?
Hey, it's in your packet, I don't have that in front of me. It was 50.
Who asked the question?
I did.
Terry, what's going on?
How much? I just wanted, you know, the lease.
This was emailed out. The total package, which it involves a lot, is $57,349.
Annually?
No. And then there will be like an annual fee, but no.
What's the annual fee? The reason for doing this is,
It was right around 11, I think, which we pay an annual fee now with the service that we have. In the Black Bureau.
So Derek,
What's the current annual fee on the one we use now?
It's around 10, but the current system we have now is doing away with payroll. Come July 31st, I have absolutely no support to process payroll for this county.
Yeah, we understand that.
By August 1, we have to have something else in place so that I can write payroll checks to our county employees.
So the yearly fee is about the same between them?
Yeah, they're roughly the same, and I personally don't believe it's apples to apples. or what we're gonna get, and, yeah, this has gone on for a while with a lot of treasurers, our surrounding counties, Moultrie, Christian,
Erica,
Hold on.
who do you,
I had David back here first, please.
So do you have no more payroll, or there's no more payroll support?
I will not have support, but I will tell you, we had a glitch in the payroll just a couple months ago, and so then we have to call in, they remote into the computer, you know, and they fix it. If I have no support, and we get partway through a payroll and we have an issue, I can't finish.
Just a question.
Yeah, so, I mean, we need that support, and I will say that the support with what we currently have is lacking, and I think we will get 10 times better support with CIC. I don't think, I know we will.
Lynn.
I agree with you, you need this. But my question is, where do you solicit those software companies, and how many software companies do you solicit for price variance or?
We didn't solicit any of this when this payroll issue came up. It went, you know, the Treasurers Association sent out, because there were a lot of people in Zobrio. I can tell you as of date, 14 counties have left Zobrio, 14 have gone to CIC. There's another county that has a meeting tonight, I believe, that will be voting to go with CIC. I can continue with Zobrio, but then we would have to find some other way to do payroll. We don't want two systems.
No, I just didn't know if there was just one or two or 10 of them out there.
Zobrio and CIC, but Jessica and I, through our associations and through, you know, the treasurers and reporters that we're closest with, it would also be nice to be able to pick up a phone and call Betty at Christian County or over to, you know, somebody that's done it, used it, you know, because you don't always have to call support, and you can ask questions. Nicole advised us to publish it in the paper. We did that. Statutorily, we have met, you know, those requirements. It's not
I just
something
wanted
that
to
we want
know,
this.
I didn't know if there was several different software companies that offered that, or if it was just one or two or three.
We also had, in October, we had a budget committee meeting where Chuck from CIC came in and did a presentation. He did a presentation in my office a year and a half ago. I would have loved to have gone to it then, but didn't feel like we had, you know, that kind of money in the budget. The only thing that's driven this is Zobrio said we're getting rid of this. But they did come in October, and those of you here that saw that, you know, I think Chuck answered, you know, a lot of the questions, and it's just a fantastic program that we need to get.
Barbara, you have a question?
Well, I don't have a question, I just want to say that Erica and Jessica are the ones that know how this program operates, and they're going to be the ones that know the best route to go. And when they talk to their other treasurers and all their other clerks, you know, there's a consensus among all of them which is going to be the best. So these two ladies are going to be the ones that know how to work the program. If you don't have this program up and running with taxes and payroll and all this stuff, and these two are the ones that are going to know which is the best way to go.
Pat?
I call it vote. I've got a good question.
I'll take one question, then we're going to call the vote.
Okay. My only question is,
And you can do that after a call.
I'll let it.
wait,
Please.
chance. Yes, I didn't want to put that in Barbara's talking about. My only question is, we've heard about one product, and we know 29 counties use this one product, which means 70 counties use something else. We only got one price. There's no doubt in my mind, this is probably an excellent product, that we do need to make a change. But I don't know how we can know if we have a fair price. We're over $35,000. I don't know how we can know if we got a fair price when
We
we're
don't know whether that you're using something else to correct your statement.
well, they got to be using something.
They got to be using something, but they don't have to be using something besides this. You're making.
Like her letter, she said 29 counties use this.
I think Jessica can prove this point. You know, when they switched to the current system that we have, we got a greatly reduced price because they were so brand new, and actually Michelle in my office pretty much set the whole thing up, and so we got a discount. My grandma always taught me, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for, and 14 counties, you know, have gone with this. This is not something that we have to go with the cheapest. We went with the cheapest the last time, even Bruce Cannon said in that budget committee meeting, Zobrio sucks. Am I right, Barb?
Yes.
We want what's right. We want what, many of our counterparts say is the best. I've seen it, she's seen it, we've seen it.
My only
We
question
don't want the cheapest system.
I don't either. I didn't say I wanted the cheapest system. I want to see what else is out there.
And the problem is, Gary, we approved this. This was approved by the budget committee in October. It didn't go in the November. Yes, it was,
The
Gary.
budget committee did not vote on it in October.
They recommended we take it to the board.
Bruce said I'd like to take it to the board. We didn't vote on it.
But you don't vote to do it, Gary. You make a recommendation, and the recommendation from the budget committee was to take it to the board. Because of all the chaos in November, we didn't get it to the board then, and it's kind of been chaos. We're at a point, we don't have time to go back. Because right now, CIC has said if Jessica goes, she's going to go to work tonight, she's going to email back to CIC so that we're in the queue. As of right now, they're telling us they hope that we are live and ready to go July 1st. And what you also have to realize, Jessica's going to be running an election. We're going to be 1 month to the end of a fiscal year. July is going to be the absolute height of my tax season where I've got $20 million coming into my office. This is going to be tough, and July 1 is if everything goes smooth. You don't change financial software and everything go smooth. We don't have a window to push this out any longer. We've done our due diligence. It went to the budget. We are asking you to approve this, please.
And to call a vote, Pat Lyons.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
Kenny Barr.
Yes.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Candidate.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Present.
Dennis Durbidge.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergety.
Yes.
Rod Hyde.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
Trey Metzger.
No.
Bobby Warman.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
No.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
John Poe.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz. Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Present.
Okay, vote passes 17 yes, 3 no, 2 present.
Pardon?
The assessor even had looked at this program too, so at some point, she will probably come to us at some point regarding this particular program too. She would like to have it, she just doesn't have it in her budget or to do it right now, but she was really interested in this program also. We had a program set up for the assessor side also, so when they all be on the same program.
They all sit on the same platform.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Mr. Spessard, Highway Engineers Report, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have, this evening I have petition. I have 3 resolutions and an agreement. There are 2 agreements on the agenda that I will not be able to present to you today because I did not get all the paperwork. One of them, IDOT did not give me they reviewed joint agreements for the Black Branch Bridge. It has not reached my desk yet. And the engineering agreement for the GIS culvert grant assessment. I have not had an opportunity to go over that with my committee. It just came in recently. So I'll bring those up next month. If that's okay with you. Then I have some updates. First item I have is a petition from the Cold Spring Highway Commissioner to replace a rusted out culvert located approximately 4.5 miles northeast of Herrick. Estimated cost $2,000 to be split equally between the township and the county. I'm recommending approval of this petition to help out that township.
I get a motion to request approval petition of Cold Spring Highway Commissioner to replace deteriorated culvert. I had Kenny Barr, Earl Baker second. Any discussion?
What's the road address on that?
It's, I don't have the address, 4.5 miles northeast of Herrick is the way I described it.
Okay, last meeting I asked you to put road address on.
Is there a road address on? I tried to do that. I thought you were talking about the,
Anything you're bringing up, we need an address also. We realize what you're talking about.
yeah, and I did put addresses all on the project list that I send out for meetings. Should have put it on here, you're right. Apologize. And I will do it here, but I did remember that comment. And I tried to easily accomplish it.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of the petition for Cold Spring Township, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Continue, please.
I have a resolution to award the annual oil bids. We had a bid opening on last Friday. The county oil, low bidder and only bidder was Howe Paving. For SC oils at $3.28 a gallon, HFE 150 oil at $2.20 a gallon, HFE 300 at $2.26 a gallon, and patch mix at $69.50 a ton. So I'm recommending approval of the annual seal coat oils.
Jeff Schleifer makes the motion. Lynn Williams seconds. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Yes, please continue.
We also have a bid opening for our annual cold mix. We make cold mix out of the county highway department. This is a bid to provide the oil in a pug mill. And we run it through the mill and the oil, mix it together, and make a cold mix out of it. Low bidder was Howe Paving, and only bidder. $2.28 a gallon, approximately ordering 33,000 gallons. Last year it was $2.62 a gallon, so for some reason it went down, which is unusual.
You said price went down? Price went down?
Yeah. Recommending award to Howe Paving.
Earl Baker makes a motion. Don takes seconds. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of awarding the contract? The contract is it? Yeah. To award the cold mix bids. Paving, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All opposed, same sign. Do we have a no?
Yes, no.
Poe votes no. Barr votes present.
Okay, normally, I have a resolution for the bridge in Flat Branch Township, located approximately 5 miles southeast of Mowequa. It's a closed bridge, and I've talked about it several times in previous meetings. Normally, there's a resolution and joint agreement that goes together. The resolution is actually an addendum to the joint agreement for funding. But as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, that we have not received the agreement yet from IDOT to approval to present it to you. But we can pass the resolution for funding. What the resolution says, IDOT requires us to pass a resolution saying we have the matching dollars available for the project, be approximately $55,000. Of which 80% of that will be state funds. The remaining funding for the bridge is 80% federal and 4% split equally between the county and the township, which we've already passed the petition for that. So I'm asking approval of the resolution that next month I'll present the joint agreement, and this resolution will be an addendum to that.
Any motion? Robert Simpson. Second by Kenny Barr. Any question, discussion? Jeff?
What's the road address on that?
It's in the agenda.
Did I get that one right? I tried to put them on there, I missed one, I guess.
That one is on there. Yeah. The Flat Branch Bridge Replacement Project, located
I think it's
2525 north.
1100E and something like that.
25 north.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
The last item I have is the agreement I presented last month that was tabled for construction engineering agreement with Hampton, Lazzini, and Renwick. Cost of $82,000 to help out with the construction oversight of the Cowden Perry job. It would be funded with the Rebuild Illinois funds that we are receiving from the capital bill. I had a question last month from some board member, I can't remember which one, wanted to know if we could competitively bid the project based on cost, and that has been researched, and you are not allowed to do that per the Professional Services Act. I also believe we are in compliance with the Professional Services Act for doing this. This company has been contracted with the county for many, many years, going way back before me. So I'm recommending approval of this engineering agreement.
Question.
Who tabled that?
Let me look at my minutes.
To the best of my knowledge, the tabling individual has the obligation to remove from the table.
Earl Baker made a motion to table.
Earl, you make a motion to remove from the table?
Well, I still got some concern about the engineer. We've got, why can't we pay by our own engineers? You know, $80,000 design engineer for a year, 2 years.
Well, I think the current situation is we don't have the engineer to do it.
Are we still looking? Are we looking?
But if we would advise to be actively looking and start recouping these costs into our own personnel, that would be advisable. Right now, we don't have the engineer, so we prospectively would need to hire to work. Second on removing the tabled motion, Pat Lyons. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion. So now we can.
Point of order, Bart also had a motion.
Right, we had to remove the tabled item first, and now we can, Barton make the motion to approve the contract with the engineering agreement, is what it is. So Barton made a motion to approve the engineering agreement.
Like I did last time.
Second, a second.
Question?
Kenny Barr.
Question, Raymond?
You can discuss it, discussion now. Fire away.
Mr. Spencer, is this the civil design company we talked about last month?
Yes.
We're paying $86,000 to oversee this contract, oversee the construction,
Yes.
and Brunswick, they're also the general contractor, or general engineer?
They're the engineering company that will oversee the construction.
And then what's civil design?
Civil design? Civil design, that's a different project.
We discussed it.
We didn't discuss it. That's the engineering agreement that I said at the beginning of my presentation. I didn't have the information, was not able to review it with the Road and Bridge Committee, so I would like to present it next month on a different project. That Civil Design Incorporated is an engineering company, yes, and it is that agenda item was to do the culvert grant assessment for townships. This is a different project.
Pushing it on next month.
Yes.
The civil design project is pushed to next month.
Is there other engineering groups that can do this?
Yes.
What's their cost?
What he discussed earlier was it was done based on a best bid, if you will, versus the low bid.
It's based on satisfactory relationship.
No big out, no big out. There's no big to it. It's really on the business.
It's based on satisfactory relationship with the county.
Yeah. It was the other company.
There wasn't it? David?
Call the vote.
All in favor of
Roll call. Benedict and
Earl Baker.
No.
Kenny Barr. Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Candidate.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Strinovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Rod Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Pat Lyons.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Warman.
yes?
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy. John Pope.
No.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer. David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes, point of order. When we call for a roll call vote, does that has to be a second with that?
No, I think anybody can call for a roll call vote at any time. Pretty
At
sure.
any time, but is that my emotion? That's why I'm asking point of order.
I think you guys need better rules. You only have one page of rules. I know I used to work in Macon County, it's a lot larger, but they have 11 pages of rules.
Okay.
We don't need them to be that big, but there does need to be more order and things like that. They're a good question and they're not addressed in the rules.
That point's been brought up several times, it would be
Traditionally, when you call for a roll call vote, it's for spending money or contested controversial things.
Okay, I have no problem either way with that. But I just wanted to be straight on it, you know, where I know, no offense to you, Earl, didn't have anything to do with you, but, I mean, anybody that calls, so we all can call for a roll call vote.
If you so fit. And
Okay.
so I don't know that I would have, as chairman, I don't know if I would have any obstruction to that. I don't know that I can abstain or object to it. So I would say if any of you members call for a roll call vote, this will do.
Okay.
Well, the reason I called for a roll call vote,
It doesn't matter what you did for Earl, I just need to
I
point
want
of
to
clarification.
know how we're spending our money.
Okay.
I just wanted clarification.
They need to know how we're spending our money wisely.
I think, does that wrap you up or you have?
I just have some updates. I mentioned we had a bid opening for oil and coal mix last Friday. We also had a bid opening for the township's oil. And every township uses oil to maintain their roads. We don't have action on that. We do administer the township motor fuel tax funds, but we do not have authority to act on the contracts. That authority is with the highway commissioners, so they have awarded those bids. We also had a bid opening for some rock hauling for townships, same thing, last Friday. The bridges in Flat Branch Township that we're talking about that is closed, that I've been mentioning over and over again, it's scheduled to be on the state's April 23rd bid opening. There are two bridges I'm wanting to construct this year, that one and the one in Rose Township, and we're going to bid another bridge later on in the fall that will not be constructed this year. But due to environmental concerns, we have to remove trees around these bridges before April 1st. So that activity is going to occur here soon. The reason we have to remove the trees is the environmental assessment said they are habitats for long-eared bats. And if you remove the trees before construction, then they won't nest there. And so it's a tricky thing because you want to build the bridge, they won't let you build the bridge if those trees are up after April 1st, even though you have, you don't even have a contract and you have all summer to build it, you cannot turn a tap. So that will happen in the next, before April 1st. The County Airport, I've mentioned several times, has been approved for a March 5th bid opening in Springfield. If you go to IDOT's webpage, you will see the plans for that project that we did in-house and the listing of bidders that have requested bid plans from the state. Once that gets bid, that will be a contract between the Illinois Department of Transportation and the contractor. We are not a signatory. We, being the county, is not a signatory on that contract, so there will be no action on the award of that contract. It is funded 80% federal money, up to $200,000, a $1.2 million estimated project. 80% federal, 200,000 state match, and the remaining will be rebuild Illinois roads. I received notification from the Illinois Commerce Commission a couple weeks ago that we were awarded a railroad crossing approach funding at $164,000 in Todds Point Township, located approximately 2.5 miles northeast of Findlay. I don't have the coordinates. I'm learning though. I'm slow. I beat you that time. But that's a good project, and we actually have a time limit of 12 months to build it, so we really need to get it built this year also. We are designing that in-house also with our engineering staff. There is of it. So, and that's my report.
I'd like to ask a question for clarification. We buy oil and coal pack, and we only get one bid. Why? Now, I would have thought there would have been people objecting that you only got one bid on that. Why is it year after year those things are only bid for one company? Do we go out and try to get others, or are we territorial where they...
When you bid, first of all, statutes are, there's quite a bit you have to do to bid a project. You have to advertise a certain amount of time ahead of time. You have to post it a certain amount of things.
I realize that.
So what we do, and since this is motor fuel tax funds, it has to be approved by IDOT. I know I'm getting kind of rounded about. I'm getting to your question. And so IDOT actually publishes it for us statewide. And actually, it's countrywide, really, statewide. And I've been here 20-some years, and there's only been a couple times we had more than one bid.
And what's that bid on oil total out? What kind of figures are we talking?
If you include the townships, it's between $1 and $1.5 million. It's a lot of money.
But my thing is, we were so concerned about $57,000 to get a computer program that has been checked on for about 2.5 years. Came highly recommended from the people you talked to, and that was fine. You know, we about after that, they didn't get more bids. And then we talk over $1 million, and we think we get one bid, that's great. I don't understand the double standards. If we're going to question those things and push to get double bids on, I believe in bids. I think we have to get bids.
Alan, your bidding process, everything goes by law. I know that I had worked with the state of Illinois, and we had to go stringent, like you said. They're really strict guidelines for this bidding. Hey, if somebody can do $1.5 million less, I'm for that. But you putting up the bid and somebody else has to, you know, you've opened it up for bid within this, it could be the whole state, you know. But somebody has to put a bid in there. Is that what your problem is? Because no one else is putting bids in?
They kind of divide the territory.
Basically,
they have territory. Let's face it.
So you're saying, well, Gary said that we're doing double standards here. I don't think we're doing double standards.
And I'm not blaming.
No.
The double it's just the way that outfit, that whole system works. I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. And that's the reason Illinois is in the shape it's in.
What's your proposal to change?
Well, I think if it's important to get these bids, we need to get out there and find out the bids.
I guess my question was, he did put the bids out. Nobody else did it. I like what you say, all you guys say, I'm not sticking up for anybody. But what I'm saying is that it's territorial within these companies, so evidently there's a conflict of interest with all these companies.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do?
There's not a whole lot we can do right here in this conversation, so I have David back here.
It sounds like you need to start an asphalt paving company, Gary.
What's that?
Start an asphalt paving company and undercut how? They'll do it for free.
You wouldn't get at first base trying to start a competition with it.
Okay, so then what are we arguing about? They've done it in Shelby County forever.
I'm saying if we're concerned about bidding, getting the best offers, we need to do more to try to find companies that will come in and bid against them.
We tell the state to make everybody bid on it.
Okay, point of order, guys. It's enough. I need to move on. Any more, Mr. Special?
No, that's.
Thank you. I'll take the floor. I'm needing to inform you guys a bit of a situation that came up here in the middle of, let's see, this is February, so about the first part of February. I had a meeting with Weston Company, our county auditor. Long and short, they basically said we're at a high-risk situation, so they need to do more work. To answer your question, Martha, that is the long and the short. So when they reference more work, they're going to have to do more testing and more checking. You know, you have, so a typical audit would do 1% of the department's transactions. They would check it.
Who's this? What company is this one doing the forensic audit?
No. This is Weston Company. This is our county auditor. This is our regular, this is a contracted long-term auditor, long-term term, 4-year term. So when they changed our status from moderate to low to high risk, they would go from a 1% check to a probably like a 7 or 8% check. A forensic audit, to be clear, is more of a 90 to 100% check. So they're checking different transactions in a department. Their estimation was it was going to cost about another 300 to 400 hours at $100 an hour.
Annually?
No, just this year. The current contract says we agreed to a 42-ish plus or minus $1,000 a year audit program. What they're saying is with the extra work needed to verify, and this is the brass tacks of it, to create a report satisfactory that they'll put their name on it, they feel they need to do the further investigation. So, with that said, I'm basically asking for approval. It's not unlimited funds. It is, they are expecting it to be no more than, they said no more than 50, but probably closer to $40,000 extra on top of the audit.
What's high risk? What kind of
High risk is they have to go, from what I understand, is they have to pull information from multiple sources. Okay, so payroll, for example, if they have to pull payroll information from multiple sources besides the payroll department, now they've got to do more checks and balances on that department because they just don't do payroll.
This company ain't the reason we're missing $500,000.
No, that is John Van Berg doing the forensic
I
audit.
know that. But if these guys have been doing our audit that long, are they missing stuff?
No, see, and that's the thing. This is something I grit my teeth on, is an audit. There's nothing more that says the beginning numbers and the ending numbers match, and everything appears to be in and out correct. A forensic audit will go into the details of how each transaction was administered and reconciled. Truthfully, an audit is just a check mark on our requirements. It's not a catch, or it's not a checks and balance, if you will. It's very, very broad overview, and that's why it's a regular audit will not catch little things.
So what are these guys gonna do different?
They're going to do more testing. So like I said, 1% testing, now they're going to do 10% testing. So that means they have to do 9 more tests per department, if you will. I've got Pat real quick.
Okay, I want to do Earl's question a little simpler, because I don't think you got the experience, but what changed? What changed in our accounting that made us go to high risk? A lot of risk. Something that changed to cause that to occur.
So what changed was from last year to this year, there was not enough reconciliation and recommendations last year to this year. Am I correct with that, Jessica? The changes that need to be made. Erica, you want to weigh in on this?
In May, Weston Company presented to the board, and I believe it was 3 pages of audit findings, and we did not change enough of those findings.
Recommendations?
Audit review.
They're saying we should have corrected stuff, and we didn't correct them.
We did not correct them.
Based on that, we're lower.
And based on that, they're going, we corrected some, but we did not correct enough, was kind of my
So we shot
understanding.
ourselves in the foot, now we got to spend
And-
an additional $40,000.
And to follow up on that, they actually, and this is not an excuse or this is just a point of information, they actually accrued these same costs last year just in the setup of getting our county into their system so they can audit efficiently. So, ma'am back here, you made a comment that intrigued me.
Audit remediation. When an audit is done, the remediation is to answer all the questions that have been brought up on the audit. It's the same in accounting, cybersecurity, any of that stuff is referred to.
Okay, thank you for that input.
Thank you, Bobby.
Hold on, Earl.
What did we do to put us on that list, though? I mean, I said we shot ourselves in the foot. I want to know.
The federal government.
Yeah, the things we didn't do to put us ourselves in that situation, I guess.
That I couldn't get a direct answer on that. I don't have a direct answer on that.
I mean, of course, financial statements are something that our previous auditor always said, you know, we don't do financial statements. That's just been something that's gone on forever. There were issues with the fact that, you know, we have small offices and our people are cross-trained and we might all handle money. Well, that's not something we can change. I can't face a taxpayer and say, oh, hey, I can't take the money, you'll have to come back. No, we have changed processes in the county clerk's office where, you know, if somebody comes in to pay their taxes with cash, we'll do like multiple, I mean, like, it's like 3 people will do it and initial that, yes, we all watch this transaction. Right, and we all have checks and balances in our offices. I just think that maybe it's not necessarily what Wes wants to see.
I mean, it sounds like there's.
I think that there was an issue, I don't know, there was a finding with payroll, I believe, wasn't there?
There was a finding with payroll, which on paper we've changed, but we're not really following the payroll policy that the board implemented, so I think they want to see that. And the issue with the financial statements, they said, not all the county funds are run through the treasurer's office. Some departments still have funds that I don't report on, I have no idea what's going in and out. So for the treasurer's office to produce a financial statement, we
up having to do that because they then have to go to those departments and ask those department heads for the bank statements.
Okay, so we got two
Numbers,
others.
so I wasn't finished.
Finish.
Now I gotta remember what I was saying. Thank you. You know, the other issue with that is, I will say, Zofrio also did not allow us to create those financial statements. CIC will, if we get all that money running through the treasurer's office. There are still accounts that we don't know. That was the two biggest things that I'm aware of. And there were smaller things. I made changes in my office. Jessica made changes, just how they would like some of the accounting done. But those are the two major ones.
John?
Mr. Chairman, I've been around these law schools long enough, it's pretty easy for me to ask. Where in the contract does it say they can do this? Have you referred this to the state's attorney yet to see if they can do what they want to do?
I have not referred it to the state's attorney. However, I do have the contract here. And on the sixth to last page, additional consultations not within the scope of the audit will be billed an hourly rate not to exceed $100 per hour. We will notify you immediately if circumstances we encounter could significantly affect these initial fees.
You buy that? Are they going to give us a list of what they're talking about? Well, $40,000, I'd go refer it to the state's attorney. Pretty heavy.
Well, and that's the thing. It's an estimate at this point in time. No, that's what I told him. I said, no, we've got to have some sort of leash on this.
Hold on, Earl. I'm passing off the state's attorney.
Now, I will say this. The audit must be done by the end of March. So we need time to review it and vote on it, I believe, at the April meeting.
Vote on the acceptance of that or vote on the continuation?
And this is why I put it on the agenda to bring it to the board, is because I told them I cannot just openly say, yeah, go ahead and continue with the audit, and we'll spend $40,000 more. And furthermore, one of my big concerns was how it affected our budget. There's been conversations that we have it covered, but we would basically swallow up the entire 029 account, I believe. Is that correct?
I don't think that we'll swallow up the whole 029 account, but then again, on the other hand, there was nothing budgeted, even though it was discussed for the forensic audit, so I have no idea what that will cost, but I don't think we'll eat up the whole 029. I mean, I think that we ended that at a pretty positive level last fiscal year, barring any, God forbid, unforeseen circumstances.
Right. And this is why I bring it to you, because it grits me a little bit, because I want the audit. I want it done. It needs to be done. I want the findings. We need those things. But then we get almost to our term of the contract.
We're going to get the same findings in the forensic.
No.
They're checking 90% of it. They're only going to check 10%.
This is the entire county. And we're just forensic audit on one department.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
One
table
department,
this.
and that's not payroll.
I'd like to table and get the auditor in here and talk to him and question him. I mean, I don't know why, what's the bullet point? What's he got to do more than he had to do before?
Earl, I'll tell you this point blank. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that we should go forward. The whole point of this is to know that if we have to amend the budget later on, this is why. And understanding why.
He's telling us we ain't doing something, we need to do it and find out why we ain't doing it.
And furthermore, I'm not sure he'll explain to you exactly why they have to do more work, except for what they told me was they have to do more testing because of the classification we became after all the officer interviews they did and the findings they found. They had to change our classification. That is why. We're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. I've got one. Okay. Sorry, Pat. Down.
Okay, I think we're beating a dead horse to death because this has to be done because the state says you gotta have
a audit supplied to them by such and such a date, and therefore for us to vote on it, it has to be done now. So I say quit wasting our breath and call a motion and let's go on with it. I call a motion, yes.
So the motion is to request approval for additional funding for the county audit.
I motion that we table it till the next session where we have time.
I second his motion.
So I got a motion and a second. Now I got discussion. Well, hang on, now discussion. Pat?
Yeah, I thought I got in the hill then, I'm sorry, but I need another motion. The table when we get some information. I don't believe in businesses that have the ability to change the standard in the middle of a term and give themselves a raise, which is exactly what's happening.
I fully understand that. I'm sitting.
I'm just like Earl, I'm looking at right here, explaining exactly why they had to change that rating from this to that in legal terms, not just because they got a bad husband.
Do you understand what I said a while ago, Pat? There is a law that says it has to be done by such and such a date, and if we don't do this now, we won't be able to comply with that. And we talked earlier that we want to do things legally.
I absolutely understand that, and I absolutely understand that that drove the timing of their shenanigans.
Aaron, would you like to come to please?
I just would like to say that 300 hours of their work is going to be about 3.5+ weeks. Because when they ask for things, then there's turnaround time, and again, it is a state statute. But the issue then becomes, we didn't fix the findings last year, so we are where we are this year. What we learned from this and take away is when they come present in May or whenever they come and they give us findings, that's when we have to make our changes and we have this discussion so that next year, we're no longer in this high risk. But this audit has to be done. It's state statute. We can't wait another month and then have 3.5 weeks of work for them to do. We can't.
So if the law, my question on that is, if the law says that does have to be done, does it also say that we have to go into the second, whatever, if they request that or not? Like the additional $40,000, does the law say that we have to do that, if they say we have to do that?
No, the contract says that if there are findings that changes the situation, the circumstances, and they feel more work needs to be done, and that's why they contacted me last week, because I arbitrarily just said, let's see, they called, say the 2nd of February, and I don't know what day that was, say it's a Tuesday. And I said, yeah, sure, let's meet on the 9th, which is the following Tuesday. And they said, no. We need to meet Thursday as soon as possible because you need to hear this. And I'm glad I did because then I could at least get on the agenda for discussion tonight.
So what are the findings? That's what nobody's telling
I mean, everybody should have received a copy of the audit. I believe it was emailed out after we received it last March, April. Yeah. Yeah, so.
And they presented, they came and presented.
They did.
That was in a meeting last May, I do recall.
I joined the board in January, so I don't have that.
What's our legal counsel say here on this issue? Yes, I hate to put that on you, but.
Well, and I wasn't here when we first contracted with this auditor, so I'm kind of not up to speed on exactly what the issues are with the auditor. If tabling it's gonna keep us not to be in compliance, then we should probably approve it.
We're off right.
Right, the timeline of it is gonna take time to do it. What's required by the law.
We've had a history of getting major things in our audits, and we just ignore them for a long period of time.
I was just going to say what Gary said. We have got findings the last 2 years. It's the only 2 years I've been on the board. And if you read your audit report and your findings, you saw it was in there. You knew it was coming. Obviously, these people are not going to sign that audit until they're happy with it. So
No.
we have no choice that I see.
And that's one point I failed to mention is if we would call for the report now, they would not sign off on the report. They would drop it, and then we'd be at $42,000. We wouldn't have a single report. So,
Probably not the choice.
But some of the stuff we cannot change. Some of the findings they always get us for every year, some things we cannot change because of how small our offices are also.
There'll be certain things, sure.
Yes, we cannot always do all their findings.
All in, should we roll call? Yeah, we'll roll call this. This is to approve additional funding for the county audit. All right. I made the motion. Don seconded. All right, let's vote on the table.
There was no second.
Oh, sorry.
On the table.
I thought you was telling me there's no second. Sorry. Anybody want to table, second the table motion?
Well, I tabled it, he seconded it.
No, I motion to table.
First.
Okay, so motion fail for the lack of second. We'll go back to the original motion. Roll call that, please.
Could you read the motion?
This is to approve additional funds for the county audit. The county audit, Weston Company.
And open it.
It is estimated, it is estimated.
When you just word this over, like, hang it up.
Give them the checkbook, let them do what they want.
Okay. Earl Baker. Kenny Barr. Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Candidate.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Sternovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergany.
Yes.
Ron Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Patrick Lyons.
No, Wes is pulling correction.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Mormon.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Present.
John Pogue.
Yep.
Robert Simpson.
Yes.
Jeff Slifer.
Yes.
David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Okay, vote passes 19-2 with one voting present.
I would entertain a motion to cap the extension.
Why, they got it in their contract, and saying they can do whatever they want.
I know, but they basically said that they wouldn't go past 50, they're expecting 40.
Right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If anybody would entertain a motion
Can we
to,
do that? It's not on the agenda.
it's germane to this agenda item.
Okay. I want to make sure we're not going to get ourselves in trouble.
The request approval for additional funding, if somebody wants to make a motion to cap it
I would absolutely make a motion to cap it.
at,
I was happy, you say they said 40, I would be generous and say cap it at 50.
cap it at 50. Motion, Pat Lyons, cap the approval of additional funding at 50. Second. Jeff Slifer, seconds. Brian.
I guess they've pointed out problems they're seeing in our county finances. Shouldn't we want to make sure we get everything looked at correctly so we can get this fixed? So if it costs us $55,000, let's get the right stuff done so we can fix it. So why do we want to go through a cap? They know what they're doing, they've estimated a certain amount of time they're going to take, we've got an estimate of that. Let them get it right.
I don't want to open that more chicken.
Let them get it right.
I think I'm very confident that a $50,000 cap will both suffice the concern, and they should stay underneath it. And if they know that they're going to get up there, they'll probably be right there. And they were very adamant that it would not be over 50, but I want to, if they want to come to us needing additional funding, okay, but we're going to this point before it's a stopgap, it's a stop point.
So what happens when they get to that point, they need to go over and we are not allowing them to. So then we don't have our audit done, so now we're in trouble with the state.
So now we've started another whole ball of issues that we gotta deal with.
This prohibition was created by 2 years of this board not listening to them and doing what it is they recommend.
No, you can't say that, Patrick. You cannot say that.
I would assume this has went on for numerous years, you just can't say 2 years.
Correct.
So let's fix it and get it fixed. We've got $800,000 more in our budget right now that I saw tonight. Let's make sure we get something done for it.
Not want to know the check.
Okay, Art.
What does our state's attorney recommend?
I recommend you vote on it. And, I mean, if you cap it, what if they need 55,000?
But the cap is in the back of the board.
We already voted on it.
Approve more later.
50,000 cap carried.
No, we voted on it.
We voted on the extension, the additional funds.
Yes.
Right, we've got the motion in the second, we're in the discussion of the $50,000 cap.
You're gonna delay it if they need more than 50,000.
Call the vote then. So
Let's get this motion right.
this motion
Yes.
is to cap the additional funds at 50,000.
Okay. If it fails, then where do we go from there?
If it fails, then we're basically, whatever their final bill is what we pay. Now, it is Brian's point is, and here's some points I failed to mention earlier. Is one, they're doing all this at $100 an hour. They have members that work at 150, 175, whatever. They're on the regular contract. On the regular contract.
$15 an hour?
So everything else in addition to is a $100 an hour rate. It doesn't matter who's working on it, which partner, it doesn't matter. So there is some grace, if you will, in our charging practice. It's still $100 an hour, but nonetheless, I agree with Brian. It needs to be done to the full.
Fix it when we get it.
And we need to fix it. And this is the.
Can it be? There's some of the issues, like
Well,
I said, within the small offices, is that going to keep us from ever getting out of this mess?
I would have to think so, because for years there were little findings, and that keeps you. There's a low, moderate, and high risk, and we were always low to moderate. What they're dealing with now is put us in the high risk, which I cannot isolate specifically. Anyway, call the vote. All in favor of the $50,000 cap, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands, please.
Earl has his hand up, he keeps taking it down.
Just call roll call.
Seven, is that correct? Got Paul, Gary, Earl, 4, 3 over here, Larry Lance. Yeah, 7. Kenny Barr, sorry.
Easy now. Be related to me.
Well, I was looking across his name, but all I could see was B.A. Sorry.
Okay.
8 in favor of the cap, all opposed, same sign. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Who's not voting?
Didn't count me first time.
So Jeff was in.
Jeff wasn't on. Okay.
13 nays. Motion fails. Up next is Jesse Durbin with the Shelby County Chair. the farm share, discussion of the expiration of the county farm lease.
Okay, I hope everybody got that.
No, I thought, I'm here.
There, you have any questions on it, but I got that.
Hey, Jessica, I have one too for the county board.
Yeah.
You guys do it. Doc Gary's got his, I'll share with you. Something else I picked up, there's a booklet from Aretha Gould Price. She actually lived on the poor farm. Her folks were supervisors of the farm. There's a lot of good reading in there, tell us about it. The conditions wasn't all that good at the time. It was people that lost everything, there were disabled people there, and these poodles took care of them. And there was a whole set of buildings there. You can see the house on the front there. That's his friend. I borrowed this from a friend, and I think you could buy it. He thought you could still buy it from Jake's Antiques down there. But that's pretty interesting. It's right now.
Jake's has them.
That,
Jake's Antiques has them.
did they? Okay. And I guess I had a bunch of stuff here I'm going to talk about. The purchase price, you all seen on, if some of you seen that deed, they paid $5,060 for that 240 acres, $21 an acre. So that-
Wow, what year? Never mind.
Yeah, 1867, February 21st, 154 years.
County wanted,
From a James Liver, is what it was like, way up there. And if you don't know where it's at, it's kind of 4 miles northwest of here, on Rose Township. The whole farm's 240 acres, and we lease out 196 acres. That's tillable. So there's some rough ground to it.
Is there a cemetery on that?
There's a small cemetery, and this book says that, sometimes people die, and they might not even been buried in the cemetery, it's pretty poor times there. What else? I guess you just want to know the question, is when the lease ends. It's the last day of February, is that the 28th or 29th? I didn't look. Yeah. Well, it starts in March 1st, still then, so that's about all I can tell you on that. It's a problem.
Thank you for the report. Yes, sir.
Just, do you have any idea where that cemetery is at on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big road, is what I call it.
Yeah, if you see where it says roads on there, that little circle there.
circle.
Yeah.
That's for the square?
Yeah, it says right here. It's pretty close to the west line. Yeah, that's right in there.
We used up there today.
Yes,
Can you see it?
I saw a patch of grass, which I'm sure was it, but I drove up there today, and I'd say there's 15 to 20 acres of timber. The rest of the non-tillable is like terraces and waterways. The conservation practices look like they're up to date and very good up there. The farm looks excellent. I recommend anybody who hasn't been there needs to drive there. There's a drive-in to each end. I can give you directions, but it's like 2 miles from the backside of the airport to the farm. And you can drive in the drive, and it's up high, and you can overlook the whole property, and you can see what's out there, but you can see. I remember what it was like when I came here 45 years ago, because I knew the guy that farmed it then. I looked at it today, I looked at it 10 years ago. That farm is nothing like it was. I mean, the county and the guy farming you know, everything that could be farmed is farmed other than, or maybe a 10 or 15 acre corner that if you wanted to knock off all those trees, may or may not be farmed, like next to a creek or something.
Ditch go through there.
So what's the value of that if we sold it outright?
I don't know, but it is a good farm, it's kept up. I'm not in real estate business, maybe John knows.
I think it's about 1.7 million.
What's your capital gains on $21 an acre? $250,000 an acre?
So government would be exempt from taxes, correct?
I have no idea.
Zero.
So our taxes would be zero.
That's all I think.
Thank you for your report and the expiration. Moving on, we have two line items that basically intertwine. I would like to more or less put them together and come up with a summary judgment, if you will. But we'll give the floor to Nicole to start out.
We're talking about the farmground stuff.
Yes, we're on item 17 now. 17 and 18, we will lump these in together in discussion because the end result will affect both.
And I know we tabled the tax issue, but I have a little bit to say about that. With respect to what to do with the farm, before I begin, just in defense of Shelby County, I think there's been an implication that at best Shelby County's been uninformed of the law, and at worst that Shelby County is a corrupt place. And I disagree that Shelby County is viewed as a county that's making progress within the state. I think it's been a laughing stock. I don't like that. I would like to change that. I think the allegations of official misconduct are thrown out like candy in a political parade in this county. Whatever is decided here, and I'm not pushing for the sale of the farm or the licensing of the farm, but no one on this board is going to be guilty of official misconduct by your vote. And I think there have been threats to people that have made people afraid to vote certain ways. I've been a prosecutor for 23 years. I've supervised over 100 attorneys in 38 different positions. I've tried 80 criminal cases, most of those felonies. This is not official misconduct to vote one way or the other on this issue. And that goes to the taxes, and that goes to whether or not you decide to sell the land, or I'm going to talk about the option of licensing it. And when I say that there's this implication that Shelby County is this corrupt place because of what has occurred with this farmland, everyone needs to know. My office contacted almost half of the state this week, and we've contacted 46 out of 102 counties. 15 of those own farmland, and 13 lease the farmland. And of the 13 that lease the farmland, 10 of them are paying the taxes. So we are not the only ones that have been doing this. Maybe they don't know the law, as we did not as well. Those counties are Edgar, Montgomery, Moultrie, Greene, Stevenson, DeKalb, Rock Island, Mercer, Henry, and Warren. So I'm just trying to defend Shelby County here because I believe it's viewed as though this county is corrupt because it's been leasing land for a private purpose. When I first got elected, I called the Attorney General. Shortly after I got into office, they sent me some Attorney General's opinions. They were old, they were from the 1970s. So I then asked for a written opinion. I wrote that written opinion and sent it on January 11th. I shared that with members of the county board. I've been transparent about everyone that I've talked to and everyone that I've asked to discuss this with. I called the Attorney General's office on January 27th. I asked if it was any way possible to have this updated formal written opinion by tonight's county board meeting. The response I got was that it's highly unlikely. They are going to diligently research the issue. They serve 102 counties. I pushed a little more. They could not even commit to having an Attorney General opinion this year. So we have to move forward without an Attorney General opinion. Based upon my research and the Attorney General opinions from the 1970s, it appears that the courts have held, and it is a violation of the Illinois Constitution to lease public land to a private entity for a private purpose. Again, no one knew that when we were doing it. It's been done since at least the 1970s. It's no one's fault. I was called to a February 2nd Farm Committee meeting, and as reflected in those minutes, the purpose of that meeting was, quote, to search for suggestions to replace the farm lease with a legal contract that satisfies the statute. I attempted to assist in that request. By doing that, I was merely trying to find alternatives to a lease agreement. I contacted the Kendall County State's Attorney's Office. The State's Attorney there happens to be a former classmate of mine from law school. It's a larger county, and I knew that they had a lot of farmland there, and I asked if they'd encountered this issue. They had, and the way that they are operating is they've got 2 different licensing agreements with farmers, and one is the Forest Preserve District has a licensing agreement with the farmer, and then the second contract is the Highway Department has a licensing agreement with the farmer. Both of those licensing agreements have been reviewed and approved by the Illinois Department of Revenue as tax exempt. So they got around the issue of the law being that you cannot lease to a farmer if it's for a private purpose. The case they relied upon in obtaining this licensing agreement and having it become tax exempt is a 2010 Illinois Supreme Court case. I provided that case to the Farming Committee. It's Millennium Park Joint Venture versus Houlihan, who was the Cook County assessor. And in that case, it is splicing hairs between what a lease is and what a license is. They're very similar. But this is an Illinois Supreme Court case, and the Illinois Supreme Court ruled that a license generally provides the licensee with less rights in real estate than a lease if the contract gives exclusive possession of the premises against all the world, including the owner, it is a lease. But if it merely confers a privilege to occupy the premises under the owner, it is a license. A license is permission to do an act or a series of acts upon the land of another without possessing any estate or interest in the land. And although there is some control inherent in any granting of a license, it is the degree of possession and control that must be considered to determine whether a lease rather than a license has been granted. The main distinguishing factors they point out: a license is different from a lease in that a license is not assignable, so that would have to be contained in the license. They are revocable at the will of the grantor, so that would have to be contained in the license. And you have to permit the owner to maintain some degree of possession and control over the land. You cannot exclude the owner from the land like you can in a lease. So those are the main 3 distinguishing factors. And the court held that the agreement constituted an untaxable license as opposed to a taxable lease. The next question after that is, where would the county get its authority, if you decide to do this, to license land? Counties have only the powers granted to them by law, plus those powers that may be applied as necessary to carry out specific statutory powers. And that is an Attorney General Opinion S. 691, as well as the case of Goodwine versus County of Vermilion and Heidenreich versus Ronsk. So those are the powers that we have. Pursuant to County Code Section 1005, Paragraph 3, counties have the power, quote, to make all contracts, license is a contract, and do all other acts in relation to the property and concerns of the county necessary to the exercise of its corporate powers. The next question is, what are our powers? Well, Paragraph 1 gives counties the power to, quote, purchase and hold the real and personal estate necessary for the uses of the county. So Shelby County was purchased in the 1800s. It's been used by the county as farmland ever since then. Licensing the land for farming serves a public purpose because it generates revenue for the county, it helps maintain the land, and it allows the county to retain its investment for future years as this land appreciates in its value. I'm not pushing for anyone to vote for the license or pushing for anyone to vote to sell it. I'm just saying there's a potential for another option other than selling it. We were working on a licensing agreement to present tonight. I was told the decision had become we want to sell it, so I stopped working on the licensing agreement. Our jail, pardon me?
We want to sell it.
Well, we had the farming committee meeting where we voted to prepare a licensing agreement. I was contacted separately, and I believe they spoke separately by Mr. Bennett and Mr. Poe that they wanted to sell it. So that's 2 out of 3 members of the farming committee. So it wasn't worth the time to continue writing out the licensing agreement to present if the vote was to sell.
Maybe the rest of the county board got a different opinion.
That's now.
That's why we're here.
And that's why, if you don't want to look at the option, it's going to take a lot of time to write the licensing agreement. So there are other things to do. Our jail's literally full right now. So I set the licensing agreement aside when I found out that that might not be something the county wanted to pursue. So that's why I'm bringing it up to you now, so that when you do discuss the 2 votes, you have, potential other options.
Chairman, there is a third option, that we can land swap and attach it to the airport.
That would be time consuming, and I don't think. So Nicole's presented on the licensing option. Mark, I'd like you to present on disposal.
Okay. We had a farm committee meeting, as Nicole stated, on the 2nd. And then after further investigation on my own, which the 3 of us could not meet and discuss at all, so I pursued looking into our options. And I've tried to dig hard. And it was very hard to take the emotional side out of which Jesse spoke of to start with. And I honor that very much. I'm a farmer as well. Jeff is. There's several of us that are. Do we ever want to get rid of ground? No. But we kept running into roadblocks, and I tried to find everything I could to get out of it. This was before we were presented with the option of a license. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. You did present the option of a license. But what happened was at our first farm meeting, we got together and we were presented with 2 documents that Nicole brought from Kimball County and from Millennial Park. In 5 minutes, it's pretty hard to read through 22 pages. This is quite a few of them here. So we kind of tried to get through the meeting and get us all with what we were going to do. We didn't really have a complete option. But what we were proposing to do was not legal to start with. We were going to take a custom farm application and take a title from this document that said farm license. It was a complete custom farm. It was nothing to do with any of the documentation that we got from Randall County. That set a red flag up to me. I needed to investigate further. We can't just change the name of a piece of paper. So I've searched and searched. As she read off some paraphrases earlier, fortunately, again, this evening, as I was doing some highlighting, I actually took where she told me on page 16 of this document, and I continued one more page. The agreement here between a license and a lease went much further. The agreement does not permit the exclusive use, and this is the document she's referring to, of the concession area, as an example, by the plaintiff. And the plaintiff shares a concession area with other users. Probably doesn't make much sense right now. So we have a farm, and if we're going to call it a license, and we're referencing this document, we're going to let somebody farm it to use it. We're going to call it a license. But anybody else can, is somebody else going to go in there during the summer and use that same farm ground? In other words, we're allowing permanent use for that farmer for the year. That's not a license. It has to be available to others. So if he goes in and plants some, somebody else can plant some. Somebody else can harvest. It's not his exclusively. That's how we get private and public property. This is public property of the county.
So what you're saying is this is a public parcel, and as soon as somebody lays a lease or license claim to it, and they would utilize the land in an independent fashion or a private fashion, then it takes the public label off of that parcel. Therefore, making it not a public land anymore. Or you'd actually have destruction of personal property on public land, which...
Another phrase here, this has to do with the Illinois statute, and I believe she may have spoke about corporate powers. That happened to be item number 3. In this same paragraph, you go down, it says, to purchase and hold or lease estate upon which may be erected and maintain buildings to be utilized for the purpose of agricultural experiments. Are we performing an experiment? And to purchase, hold, use personal property for the care and maintenance of such real estate in connection with experimental purposes. We're not experimenting on anything. So, since 1967, if you guys, anybody picked up or looked at your packet, it talks about the Morgan County Poor Farm. And it's highlighted down below the care of poor in Illinois. In that portion, that paragraph in the ensuing paragraphs, it talks about when it was private, then when they built the farm, when they took them down, and the very last sentence before you get to the content. In 1967, the Public Aid Code repealed the county homes laws and deauthorized the county homes remaining in Illinois. There's also a 99-year rule. It says the county board may lease real estate according or held by the county for any term not exceeding 99 years. We have owned this property since 1867. We're over 100 years. We're 153 years. So we've been 53 years not doing what the rest of the codes in our Constitution tells us. And if you read also that Cyber, Illinois, and Jesse actually stated a little bit, conditions were not that nice out there. When I read the whole article, I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed why we had the ending of these poor farms and the conditions that people went through. I don't think it's something to be really proud of in the end. It did good, yes.
They didn't have nowhere to go.
Correct. But they refer to people in here as inmates even. I'm not real proud of that. I think the farmer did great, has done great for years. I tried to do my best. I tried to be a steward of the land. But our hands are tied on this because we cannot legally do it. If we try to do what Nicole's talking about doing, we could be another year and a half. And still, we would have no income for this year, maybe next year, and we may still be in the same boat to sell it. Because there's no guarantees. Then we'll be in the rears another 2 years of taxes. At least this way, you can take the money if you sell the land. You can put a monument up at the cemetery to recognize that a poor farm and for people to remember. And it goes back to being taxed, so you as taxpayers all receive funds from that money sitting in some secure fund.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we sell the property.
I have a motion on the table to sell the property by Rebecca.
Second that.
Pat Line second. Any discussion? I have a few questions. Just to be clear, Mr. Bennett, So in 1867, we put would be admirable. You know, we've generated some income off the farm. But the problem is, to Mark's point, a very simple statement of public lands for private use. Mark would have an opportunity to put a bid on that, but would a person from Sigel put a bid in on that and be competitive? It's not likely. It happens, but it's not likely. There's some personal aspects that we've all talked about. You know, probably a short half of us are all in agriculture somehow. And we have a deep tie to the land. We're not a farming entity, is the problem. We are a tax-based entity, and that is how we operate. With that said, any more questions?
I have a question. State's attorney, do you agree with everything he said?
Mr. Bennett?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Do you believe we can
Wait,
do it?
what would you contest, please? I got to know.
The part in the case about allowing other people onto the land is not the main part of the case as to why the court distinguishes a license from a lease. The court distinguished a license from a lease because in a license, you are letting the owner have some control of that land. You don't have to let strangers on the land. It's how much control does the owner have over that land. So you don't have to allow the public to come in and everybody gets to plant a little on the farm for it to be about a license. And then the parts in the county code about to purchase and hold real estate to erect a building, that paragraph has nothing to do with what I said. We, in my opinion, have the power to do this under only paragraph 3, and that is, he's citing to paragraph 5 when he's talking about buildings. That doesn't apply. Paragraph 3 says that counties have the power to make all contracts and do all other acts in relation to the property and concerns of the county necessary to the exercise of its corporate powers. And a corporate power would fall under paragraph 1, which is one of the powers is to purchase and hold the real and personal estate necessary for the uses of the county, which we have purchased that land. We're holding that land for the benefit of the county to generate revenue for the good of the public. And farming it helps to maintain the land and helps to generate revenue for the county. A license gives the farmer less control over it, and it's valid under the Illinois Supreme Court decision.
I'll take the floor on that. We did purchase the land for a public use. That land, that public use was abolished. Therefore, there is no more public use for that land. That's my opinion, but John.
Thank you. We spent a lot of hours working on this project, and as did the state's attorney, and I just got to say, after all the time that Jesse and I spent and Mark spent, it's rough trying to figure out what to do with an asset this big. I've done it before with other parcels like this, but after researching this, I just got to say, we're lucky in a lot of ways. We're lucky that the assessor made a mistake and assessed the property that he shouldn't have assessed. They should have assessed it to the farmer had the contract been legal. That's all beside the point now, but that's the only reason this came up. Was the assessor did the wrong job of assessing this, and it became an issue because taxes started to grow, and they figured it out. So we got this position, actually accidentally, but we're here and we're going to fix it. After all the things we've gone through, and knowing that we can't get public use out of this property, regardless of what the contract type is, and we looked at the opinions, Logan County and others were just so strong with opinion about not being able to rent it. I mean, cash rent farming like we've done for 100 years in Illinois. It's just hard to realize there's 1 or 2 contracts out there, and nothing against the contract they straight found. But if there were hundreds of contracts out there that were legal to rent and get the income off of it, they should be popping up by now. We can't find it. I've been in real estate for 45 years, and some of these contracts you see are lengthy and thick and long, and you know, bring out every single thing that you can think of with taxes. The taxes were never pointed out in this contract the last 5 or 10 or 20 years. So there's probably a reason why. So I'm still in the same boat that Mark is, and I think Jesse too, quite frankly. If there was a solution, we'd love to rent cash rent. I hate to see an asset cashed in because I'm worried about what happens to cash. And we talked about this briefly in the meetings and previous meetings. And what we've also come up with is if they can sell the farm, if the county agrees to sell the farm, what we think they should, and we can't approve this tonight, that there should be some kind of improvement amendment, scholarship amendment or something where we can relate some of this agricultural money to stay in the county for agricultural purposes. Meaning school scholarships for young farmers or something tied to the agricultural field. Not $1.5 million worth of it, but a significant amount.
Right, and just a point of clarification, this is a motion to take action. It isn't a motion that we're going to do it tomorrow. You know, the committee doesn't have authority to hire either a realtor or an auctioneer or make a decision on anything except for we task, if the board would approve to sell the farm, then we would send it back to committee for review of the option of sale, you know, what to do with the money afterwards, which quite frankly, I think the finance and legislative might get together on those types of things, but this is a conversation for a whole other day, presuming that the board understands what they're trying to say is there is no more public purpose for this land. Therefore, there's no more cause for the county to keep it. If there was public use for the land, the county would have cause to keep it. When they abolished it, the poorhouse and the almshouse in 1967, I guess the legislators didn't think that to go ahead and put it in the writing to disperse the land it's on.
I can tell you just a couple things.
Go ahead, John.
One thing too, if we do pass it to dispose of the property tonight, everything still has to be in place, an auctioneer, an appraiser, but also a title too. We may come up with a title search and a title understanding that we can't sell the property. There may be some strings on there. But because we need to take action now to get to the point where we can sell it by April 1st, as an example, and get a farmer on there by April 1st, we got to act pretty quick to do something.
I would suggest looking in the state legislative records. If they instituted the poorhouse or the poor farm and the almshouse and they abolished it, they would be the authority that would give the guidance of how to disperse of it.
Title should be best to the records, so most of it's going to be found. We'll have a title inspection. But my whole point was, we need to make a decision to sell, so we can make a decision to go forward.
Right.
We're going to run out of time on it.
I just got an idea here. Why don't we just give this here land to the airport commission? Airport out there is low on money. They need more finances out there, and they can take this income, help them, and the county still owns the land yet. You guys want to get rid of it. I'm not in favor of that. But I thought maybe we'd try another angle to give to the airport for their control, then we won't have to tax it. Won't be taxed like there it is out there, and let them operate it. And then we still have the land, and the airport, it would help the airport because they're needing finances. And I just thought, man, throw that out. That's something to think about. I just have to vote to get rid of it. I'm not for that right now.
I would like to speak to that in a second, but Barb.
What's the point of having Nicole come up with a different solution if we're not even going to listen to her? That's why we have a good state's attorney now, so she's come up with an option. So let's,
Right.
I mean, you guys are kind of like cramming us down how wrong we are if we don't sell this ground.
The turn of events was to address the situation. And then as you investigate and read the lease, it doesn't change the function of the land. The function of the land is either public use or private use.
But Nicole's come up with a solution to this problem. So why are we not utilizing her expertise?
Who's paying the taxes?
What Kendall County did with respect to the taxes is in their licensing agreement, they put a clause in there because the Department of Revenue will not preview agreements. You have to actually go through the process and submit it. So Kendall County put in their license agreement that the state attorney's office will prepare the documentation to request that the land be tax exempt. But if the Department of Revenue says no, the farmer agrees to pay for the taxes. They didn't have a problem with it. It was tax exempt. And once it's done the first time, as long as you're doing the same thing, you can expect that it's going to be continually approved. And they had 2 licenses that they did that, and they were approved.
In the case of Kendall County, was that an exclusive parcel of land that was a standalone piece?
The one was with the Forest Preserve through the Park District. The other one was the Highway Department. They didn't give me a copy of that second one. She gave me the Forest Preserve license to get used as a template to work something out with ours.
So it could be highly likely, I think Mark might confirm this, that the parcels that we're talking to about Kendall County were public use, that they sectioned out an area for lease. That land around it being public, but in a maintenance term, they needed somebody to license to take care of it.
They had somebody license it to use hay.
So,
and they split the profit of the crop.
So very much like the airport. The airport is a public place, and they parcel out hangars. The leaseholder pays taxes on those hangars, or is supposed to.
No, they don't have to pay taxes on it. They don't pay taxes on their other airports.
Well, on the hangars. What I'm getting at is the big body of land, the main body, is a public place. And they are parceling out sections for the function of the airport. That is something airport authorities have, and that's a whole other ball of wax. But in the term of Kendall County, it is a park district. The park was a public parcel that had a section out of it.
I don't know if I have a section on it.
The airport, that close road from the airport, they rent that out. They can rent that ground out and get high with it, and then they have an airport authority. And then one has to get rid of the land, that's the guy to get rid of everything.
If the Ford Farm laid adjacent to the airport, it would be feasible. It would be feasible. Because it's 2 miles away, how do you use the airport authority and say, we're going to build another airport over here? You know, what's the deal?
If they finance the airport, but they need it badly, they're going to raise taxes, so there you go.
I've got Mark over here. I've had Mark over here for a while.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, Terry, Brian. So what we'll do here. So Mark, Terry, Brian.
Bobby partly answered the question as far as the airport. If you had the option to swap ground and is actually usable around the airport, it's a viable option. Because you could actually build in the future hangar or white strip out, but it needs to be contiguous. Now, if you were going to build a separate, like a landing pad, helicopters or something over on the farm, yeah, it's for public use. But since it's not contiguous, being 2 miles away, there's no connection. And another point, answer, okay. If we apply for, if we try to apply for.
Gentlemen, if I could please have you take your seat and listen to the presentation. I'm not sure what's going on over there. But
It's all repetitive, Bobby. We need to move on. We've heard both sides. Let's go slowly. It's all repetitive.
no, we brought broached a new subject here. Excuse me.
The other item is if we try to do the license, as to say it could be a drawn-out procedure. There's no for sure. And with that, we have outstanding taxes. And if we wait for that ruling to come back, that means the farmer's going to farm it at a certain rate. And we come back and it doesn't pass. We're asking him to pay another $4,000 approximately. Plus we have last year's taxes. Does he want 2 years of taxes and not know if he's going to be paying them or not? We're asking to go out on a limb to sign the documents first, and then it goes in to be approved or disapproved. It could be very drawn out. Do you want that and risk not having a crop off of it for maybe 2 years? Is that viable for us?
I got a question for the first question.
Oh, no, we're going to Terry.
With all the importance of all of the different ideas, at the very least, I'm going to make a motion to table this for another month. I mean, she's got ideas. There's ideas about giving it to her. We need some direction, and if the direction is sell it, that's so fine. So I think it deserves another month to come in here and decide which way it's going to go. Let the farm committee sit down and come up with these options.
We want to hear all kind of ideas, because we could drill.
He's right. We have no options. A couple more committees.
We have no.
Yeah.
If
somebody mentioned that.
if the sale happened and we were imbibing a large sum of money, there would need to be a finance committee, and the farm committee would need to get together and. But by the way, there is statutory guideline on how to invest money. I mean, it's all right there. Just look at it.
You ain't going to get an investment like you are this
We're not
farm.
going to make this investment.
No, that's the thing. We were never intended to. That was a public use parcel. We were never intended to make money on it. And this could be the root problem of this whole conversation is for 50 plus years we have made a lot of money on it. And that's the root problem is we've not lived on it, but we've been drawing off of it. And that was never the intention of public land, is to make money on public land.
There is a motion on the floor.
I haven't a second.
I'll second. I made the motion.
Slifer seconds the motion to table.
I made the motion to sell.
Yeah, we were.
Another motion to
Right.
table supersede.
And tabling supersedes. And if the vote happens to table, it supersedes the vote.
Is that the end of the discussion?
Yes, that's the end of discussion because we have a motion and a second to table.
Will committee input?
No.
Okay.
So if we hold the table down, we'll go and vote for the sell.
Yep.
Continue to stay.
So any discussion? No,
You can continue discussion if we vote the table motion down.
if you vote no on the table, yes, we'll go back to discussion on the sale. All right. I'll do a roll call, make it a little easier. We'll just do a roll call.
Give us the motion first.
This is to table the sale of the farm.
So if we don't take it, we'll go back and sell it.
Voting yes tables the conversation of selling. This is the table.
Earl Baker.
No.
Kenny Barr.
Table.
This is the table.
Yeah.
Barbara Bennett.
Yes, let's table it, we'll just sell it.
Mark Bennett.
No.
Paul Canady. Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Durnovich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yeah.
Gary Gergany.
No.
Rod Hyde.
Say yes.
Larry Lenz. Patrick Lyons.
No.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Gorman.
No.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Gary Piercy.
No.
John Poe.
Absolutely not.
Robert Simpson.
Yeah.
Jeff Slifer.
Absolutely yes.
David Switz,
Yes.
Don Tate,
No.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion to table passes 13 yes, 9 no.
There you go. Gary.
May I ask the state's attorney a question? Can you get us an example where the license right comes to the county board? Everything I can find is a parking district that's licensed. And I cannot come up with any grounds for the county to have the power to issue the license. And I'd just like to know where that comes from, if you can give me that information, I'd appreciate it.
It's what I read that I can write it out. I cited to that statute and then drew attention.
But it was a county board doing the licensing, not a park district.
Kendall has a second case that involved the highway departments that would be the county. When they had one involved there. And I don't have a copy of that license, but I could get it.
Yeah, if you would, that's the point I need to take.
Okay, I think we've heard from several committees already. Is there any other committee reports? Sorry? He pulled that. In the public comment, he pulled the. Yeah, thank you. Chairman reports, I pretty much laid everything out on the table I can that I know of this month. I would like to point out one thing. Special thanks to Paul Kennedy. He did make the main place that we've had for the last. We had him last month, and I forgot to make mention of it, so thank you. Moving on to chairman appointments. Let's see. Recommending to appoint Bruce Steinke to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I get a motion? Jesse Durbin, seconded by Kenny Barr.
I just got a question. How does people live in Shelby County? Every one of these examples.
Yep, I got the letter.
That's all I wanted to
I would have any other reason to think not, so. Do you have any other reason to think not?
That's why I asked. If it would be out of the, to appoint somebody outside the county, I don't think it's right. I think that any appointments that you would present to us would all be in county.
That's fair enough, if you can prove that somebody's not in the county. If it's written in the rules somewhere in the state.
I mean, I'm not picking on anybody here, it's just,
Okay. Nick, let's see, had a motion and a second, had discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'd like to recommend John Stroll appointed to the Sheriff and Mayor Commission. Jeff Slifer makes a motion, Barb Bennett seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Gary Gergany to the Regional Office of Education Board. Can I get a second? Denny Durden, seconds. Any discussion, questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'll make the motion to appoint Paul Kennedy to the Eastern Illinois Economic Development Authority. Jeff Slifer seconds. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Recommendation to nominate Pamela Fairbanks to the Shelby County Housing Authority. Earl Baker makes the motion. I have Bob Simpson up here on the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, that does it for the appointments. I have no correspondences to date, I don't think. Besides the numerous daily uses, emails that you guys might be. Gary?
I just had a real quick report from the Sheriff's Department, which we told in on earlier. I think we skipped that.
Yeah.
But basically, we're up to, now that COVID's changed, they've got 25 to 26 convicts, or inmates, or whatever we can legally call them, over to jail. Clients, we have 25 to 26 clients in jail. And there are 5 or 6 waiting for the Department of Corrections to accept them. But the jail is basically full. They're not able to do anything as far as COVID policies, quarantining. They're basically overloaded. And Nicole and the court system need to really get something to work on this. We can have a real problem in a real short amount of time with that much overcrowding over there. And I just want everybody to be aware that's going on. At the last meeting at the LEC, Nicole reported that the Sheriff's Department is doing a very good job in building their cases, so when they get to court, they can get the court cases to court and get them settled. The other thing, I guess, that was mentioned there, the COVID, which I think you've all read some of the minutes also, but the COVID policy expired at the end of the year. So anybody who's quarantined or followed under COVID now, the federal government's policy is over. So therefore, we got to make a decision on what it comes up. But we do not have a COVID policy. The other thing, we don't have a virtual meeting policy. If somebody wants to vote from home, is sick, whatever, we have no policy for that. So those two things were mentioned. And the other thing that go ahead.
Would you pause there? What did you just say? There's no policy on what?
There's for like virtual meetings, like Zoom meetings, something where you're at home, you can participate in a meeting. We have no policy to do that.
Gary, I asked the clerk to put that on the agenda.
Okay, good.
That was just today, so.
Okay, that's great. And then the only other thing is, you probably all saw it because it came this week, but if the federal government does pass this next relief package, Shelby County will receive somewhere around $4 million in relief with this next package. And I mean, obviously that's residents of the county, but there's $4 million that will be earmarked for Shelby County. And the other association we belong to, they've opened up a grant service where we can go on there and we have to name one person in the county to go on and look for them, but it says that person can go on and look, and they'll show what grants are available to the county.
Through Grant Finder, that was UCC.
Yeah, Grant Finder, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah, I may have brushed over some committee reports. Any other committee reports that want to be together? We're on correspondence. I have none to speak of. Now we will bring up approval of all the claims presented and reviewed by the committees. Can I get a motion to approve the bills? Barb made the motion. Bob Simpson seconded. Any questions on the bills? Hearing none, we will take the roll call vote.
Earl Baker.
Yes.
Kenny Barr. Barbara Bennett.
Yes.
Mark Bennett.
Yes.
Paul Candidate.
Yes.
Brian Kaufman.
Yes.
Dennis Durbich.
Yes.
Jesse Durbin.
Yes.
Gary Gergety.
Yes.
Rod Height.
Yes.
Larry Lenz. Patrick Lyons.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Yes.
Bobby Worben.
Yes.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Derek Piercy.
Yes.
John Poe.
Yeah.
Robert Simpson.
Yeah.
Jeff Slifer.
Yeah.
David Switz.
Yes.
Don Tate.
Yes.
Lynn Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 21 yes, 0 nay.
So up next would be the reopening of public body comment, and I'd like to take the floor and just make one comment, and that is I would challenge all 21 of you left 21 approved the meeting. To find in the county's code where it would permit the county from owning land that would be used for private purpose, and look in the Constitution and find where it allows the same. The state constitution would dictate things that may not be in the county's code. So find those things and bring to the attention of the farm committee. I'll go back here to the floor.
If I can ask a question, I know it's not stupid, but knowing the approach to the upcoming farm season, are we waiting too late to handle this in March? Or should there be another meeting in February? I don't know if that's within your guidelines.
No, we can call a special meeting. Right, we would
Good
be
question.
10-day publishing of a special meeting.
I'll make one to adjourn.
No.
Whoa, I haven't closed public comment yet.
When did we vote to do public comment?
Can't. Jeremy, do you want to talk?
I had a question, probably more for the clerk than anyone. There was a special meeting, this is concerning the audit, which was number 15. There was a special meeting where the audit from last year was presented, right? I think that was in May or June.
It wasn't a special meeting, it was a normal board meeting, I believe. No, there was a special meeting, June 3rd. June 3rd, there was a special meeting, the audit was presented.
Yes, I remember that. The audit was presented, you had a regularly scheduled meeting the following week, I believe it would have been the 10th.
June 10th, yes.
Now, the county board members could have had that audit in hand on June 3rd, obviously, because it was presented that day. But they could have had it 7 days prior to the regularly scheduled meeting, could have been presented with it at the regularly scheduled meeting, asked questions and approved it at the regularly scheduled meeting. They chose to do that at a special meeting, is that right?
That's correct.
And the audit was just about the only thing on the open session agenda.
They did the audit, and they did set salaries for elected officials to be elected December, or to take office December 1.
Yeah, those were the two things. But, okay, so from that audit, could we have had the things that we needed to do to not be put in the high-risk category for this go-around? We would have had that.
They were in there.
They were in there?
They're still in this.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at here is this. A special meeting was called to do that, and nobody on the board had the audit in hand to review before that special meeting.
No, in fact, the auditors brought those audits with them on the 3rd of June.
So with the option to have 7 days to review and ask questions and be presented and then approved, the board chose not to do that and chose to do it in a special meeting. And okay, that makes me think that the audit was kind of...
We were already late with the audit. Our previous auditor normally always presented the audit in March, at our board meeting in March. We were so late last year, I'm not going to say that was the fault of anyone. You know, we had a new auditor. It was new for us, new for them, and they didn't get it done till June.
So the point of having it on June 3rd instead of the regularly scheduled meeting on the 10th was because it was late?
Yes.
Okay, so 7 days made a world of difference there?
Yeah, I mean, the former chairman isn't here. He's the one that made arrangements for the special meetings. So.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I remember that meeting going into closed session after the board unanimously approved the audit, asking no questions. That board went into closed session that day. That was an illegal meeting. That closed session was, that whole meeting was used as a facade to go into closed session to bash the treasurer. Okay? Because that's the meeting that you went into closed session, and the best advice you got from your then legal counsel was to keep your voices down because people outside might hear you. So we did a facade. We used the audit as a trick to get into closed session to bash the treasurer. And now we're having audit problems. Perhaps we should have taken the audit a little more seriously. Perhaps people should have got it ahead of time, had a chance to review it, ask questions, not pass it unanimously with no questions,
You could have reviewed it for a week and asked questions, and now we might not have this audit report.
I think you missed part of it. When he presented it that day, he handed out the report. He said, read it. If you have any questions, ask questions. I'll come back and answer questions. The auditor doesn't have the ability to come in and order us to make those changes. That report says all these things are wrong. It's not the auditor's job to come in and change Shelby County. Is this right, Erica? Could the auditor come in and order us to change?
They give you the finding, it's the board's responsibility, the county's responsibility to change.
It's the county's
I
responsibility.
mean, the bottom
to
line
change.
is, we got the findings, somebody put them in their file cabinet, and we did nothing other than some of us that could change our departments, changed our departments. There's things there that the county board has to change.
And it wasn't the first year. We had findings the year before.
That's not my point, Gary. My point is this.
What's your point?
My point is this. The audit wasn't taken seriously.
By some, it was by me.
Okay, you didn't
I
ask.
read the whole.
You didn't ask any questions about the audit because nobody did. I remember nobody.
I did
asked
the
any
audit
questions.
meeting, but I asked a lot after it, and when we got the audit, I read the audit every page and then asked questions. Other people here asked questions.
What's the point of asking questions after you already approve it? Shouldn't you ask questions before you approve the audit?
It's just saying that we agree that he's done with his audit. He's presented his findings.
Did you make any motions after the fact to change any of the findings, to address them?
I
You read it, you asked.
I did.
You
I
did, you made
tried.
motions to the county board.
I tried to make changes, yes.
In the county board meeting.
Well, I'm done.
That's it.
Hold on, Martha.
Yes, I have a couple of points to make, please. And board members, I'm sorry, but it is really disrespectful to the taxpayers for you guys to get up and walk out during public body comment.
We've had two public body comments.
It's on the agenda, sir, and that's what we get, that's what we have the right to do. You're being extremely rude. Item number 6, Bobby, in regards to the vote and the discussion about taping meetings, I would just say that I think you guys should tape, because like you said, these meetings are lasting, excuse me, have a wonderful evening. Because the meeting minutes are minuscule in comparison to the conversations that are being had, and because you have those committee meetings during the day, when the majority of your taxpayers are working, we can't attend those. So the only way that we would have access to those is to FOIA the recordings so that we can hear what's going on. You all have access to them. You don't have to FOIA them. But we don't have access to them unless we FOIA them. Well, if I FOIA meeting minutes and it's 3 sentences out of a 3-hour meeting, I don't feel confident that I'm finding out what was actually going on in that meeting. In regards to the county treasurer and the CIC governmental accounting software that Eric and Jessica spoke to, Gary, I think you missed it, whether you intended to or not.
Okay.
What you missed was the fact that Erica pointed out that Nicole had either done it herself or recommended it, and it was done, that it was put in the paper and published for need. So it was there, which is published for need, it's basically out for bid, and there were no responses. Just like you didn't get any responses other than how paving, you didn't get any responses to this. So to insinuate that nothing was done and they're just picking something that they want isn't appropriate.
I did not say that.
You wanted to know why there wasn't a second and a third option. It was put out for public, it was put in the paper, published for need. There was no response. If there's no response, that is extremely specialized software. And if the County Clerk Association and the Treasurers Association recommend that software, who is Shelby County to say that that's not the most appropriate software?
What paper was it put in?
It was put in Beecher City Journal, it was put in the Golden Prairie News, and it was put in the Shelbyville Eagle.
You recently, there's a software company in Shelbyville, right, that makes software for retail offices. It's really expensive. Like $50,000 is I was like, wow, that's cheap compared to a software company that's in this town, right? So I just wonder if we realize it's all about, software's very expensive. Most software companies charge upward of $300 to $400 an hour to develop software. So we talk about the audit was $100. Most software developers charge over $300 to $400 no matter what. So just wanted to keep that in perspective.
But if you read about CIC, which I did, it says that they put together packages and they support them and they sell them. They don't make them. It says they put them together and they offer them. So They're not doing what you're doing.
It's the same concept. That
Okay.
I'm saying. Your software's expensive, so I thought that's a good deal.
But you're in the software business, I'm not. If you got one thing to look at, how do you know what you're looking at? That was my only question. I didn't say they're good or bad. I'm just saying there's 70 other counties that do something. I would have thought you would have got some feedback. I did a survey. and
They got feedback from their
feedback.
associations, and their associations cover how many counties across the state?
All right.
Their associations cover 102, and that was the recommendation from the association.
So,
Anyway,
we have appreciation for the acknowledgement and the passage of the CIC contract.
okay. My last comment is to the two folks, and unfortunately Lynn left because he didn't want to pay attention to the public body, but I'm going to read this. And this has to do with you, any of you members that vote present. You should not be voting present. It's not legal to vote present. And you're doing your constituents in your districts a disservice. 55 ILCS 5/2-4004 from Chapter 34, Paragraph 2-4004. Section 2-4004. Conduct of meetings. A majority of the members of said board shall constitute a quorum to do business, and in the absence of the chairman pro tem may be appointed. The board shall sit with open doors, and all persons may attend the meetings. The vote on all propositions to appropriate money from the county treasury shall be taken by ayes and nays and entered on the record of the meeting. Nowhere in there does it give anybody on the board the authority to just vote present. So I would ask Bobby, you as the chairman, if you have members that are voting present in the future, to call them out on it and ask them for an A or an A.
How do you vote if you've got a conflict like Barb did?
Abstain.
Okay, you say abstain instead, okay.
No, that was from over here.
Okay, she said she couldn't vote.
Two main reasons to abstain.
Remove it.
One, you're not knowledgeable about what you're about to vote on, or you have a direct conflict.
Or your conflict, yes. So in that case, you can't vote.
But I didn't say abstain, Gary. I said present. Don't vote present.
But I'm just saying, what can they say? Because she couldn't A or nay either one. She was involved.
Abstention is not an option either, that's not legal.
What is it?
Hold on, no.
I don't want to talk. I want to hear Kirk out from the
Let's move back on to Kurt.
Let's hear the watch box.
I would like to say, and with all due respect to State Attorney, I do believe there is progress to be made because it's actually dialogue. We didn't have that a year ago. Not like we do here. And nobody's going to always agree, I get that. You are having dialogue, there are things we can fix, there are suggestions on how to fix things. That's an encouraging thing. And there are people that see that as a positive. In regard to the farm ground leasing, the public purpose, private purpose, I would encourage everybody to go to case text, and I mentioned case text because Westlaw, you have to have subscriptions. But search case text for the term property tax public purpose. And you will pull up dozens and dozens of cases where the courts have identified what is or is not a public purpose, and what does or does not qualify and who has to pay taxes on it. And in that regard, one thing that I think he was emphasized in the Millennial case, the concession stand was deemed to have a public purpose. The public purpose was everybody's able to use it. In the forest preserve case, the farming there and the hay was being, half of it was being utilized by the forest preserve, and they deemed that to have a public purpose. Just receiving revenue from it isn't a public purpose. And in a lot of those cases they talk about that. There's a lot of cases on that point. Even the Attorney General opinion on it points back to that very limited case law that still is standing and has not been overruled. It's jeopardized. It hasn't changed. So public purpose is the real key. And when it comes to paying taxes, the real key is Article 8, Section 1, how you use public money. It has to be done for a public purpose. It can't be done for a private. And some of those cases talk about using public
for reference in Kendall County, that forest preserve case, the forest preserve uses part of the hay that's produced off of that ground. And that's the criteria that changes into a public purpose, that changes the tax obligation. So keep that in mind. And I know there's a lot to read it, but you don't have to be a lawyer to read it. You have to be a lawyer to understand it. On the last point, and I would appreciate if the state's attorney is willing to address this point from a statutory construction standpoint, you have been given the power to license a television tower. That power was given. The television tower serves a public purpose. Everybody can access the TV off of it. And the way courts have ruled in certain cases on, I call this a first impression case because it's never been before the courts, from the standpoint of this situation you have, had the legislature, we see this in many cases, had the legislature intended to give the county the power to license farm ground, they would have put it in the statute because they gave the license to do towers. Therefore, you have a silence. A silence has been recognized as a prohibition. I can't see why that's not the same case here. I'm not saying it is. That's the way we're seeing how that would apply. You've been given license to do a television tower. You've been given power to license farm ground. And that's a significant issue from a statutory construction standpoint. That's just not our opinion. That's come from several attorneys, including some Harvard grads. Because this isn't stuff we just brainstorm on. We talk with a lot of law firms when we present our information. So, for what it's worth, that's all I have. Thank you.
So if they planted wheat on the land and the county used the straw, like as they're doing roads, would that be a county public use then?
If they can create a public purpose, that's the game changer, is public versus private. That's what this is all about.
It would, I mean, to create a public purpose out of the land again.
What about the cemetery?
The cemetery would have to be recognized by somebody, and so if you Google poor farm cemeteries, there are actually a few that pop up. There's Western Illinois, Coles County down around Westfield, one down around Belleville, but this one's not even recognized on the map. So the county most certainly should. And truthfully, and the cemetery itself, just like other small cemeteries that are just simply marked but not active, they have an access road to them, and that's it. They have the plot and then the access road. Now, if we put a marker on the cemetery that says this was once the place of the poor farm, it still does not serve a public purpose for the whole poor farm, just for that spot. But like she referenced, if the farmer would agree to only raise wheat year after year after year, so we could have straw-filled road projects, and then sell the straw if we had surplus or something, that whole other can of worms that for another conversation another day.
There are graveyards that have farm ground. Cemeteries in the statute, they can actually lease out their farm ground. But the farm ground, there's cases where, okay, the cemetery is tax exempt, the farm ground gets taxed, and the farmer can't pay tax. There's those cases.
It would be the same as the airport. The airport, the public access part is exempt. Everything else is not. So here we're back to square one. Any other public comment? Where are we at with the forensic audit?
I called today. I tried to get that answer before every county board meeting, and I called him right before noon, and he didn't call me back today. The last I talked to him was before the last county board meeting, and he thought he'd be done by the end of February.
Where we at with the employee doing personal work on county time?
Are you talking about the highway
Yeah.
issue? There's a law enforcement agency investigating that, but they just started that investigation.
And where we at with the gun sale?
That investigation was complete last summer. The Attorney General's office accepted it, so we should have a decision. I believe they're also waiting for the forensic audit, and they'll have a decision on that at the same time as the forensic audit issue.
Any more public body comment? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Yes. Don Tate, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Have a good evening, thanks, everybody.